sitting in for the vacationing Jeff and Bill. Back on the air again, 5 to 9. Excuse me, now I'll take it back, 6 to 10. I was talking to somebody off air. I said, I used to do this show from 5 in the morning, and now we do a 6 in the morning start, and it really is so much better. The weather looks pretty darn good today. I rode my motorcycle to work. 90 will be the high today, 92 tomorrow, 96 on Thursday, and we break the hundreds on the weekend. It is terrific to work with him. I've been a fan for a long, long time. Blake Olson, yesterday, he was on his game. The man is here. My boy, good morning, man. Thanks.
Hey, good morning, Pete. Thanks for coming in and making that beautiful drive. That must have been gorgeous.
It was beautiful this morning. And it rolled out of the garage and
oh, wow.
Turn the lights on.
Love it. Love it.
And then keep trying to keep the noise of the motorcycle down. I have a please.
The neighbors don't like that.
Well, these pipes, although it isn't their trade name, they are oftentimes called neighbor haters. Seriously,
I've never heard that before.
Give me a set of them neighbor haters.
Oh, that's great.
Well, no, they're slip-on mufflers. Actually, they're
awesome.
They're Reinhardt's, but
hey, what do what do you think of that law of motorcycles going in between cars?
It's wrong.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you.
Wrong.
I'm so glad you said that because, those things, man, when they're a foot from you, you don't hear them until they're right at your door.
It's been done to me. No,
it's dangerous for everybody.
Yeah, it really is. And
that's coming from you who rides Harleys. So.
Well, it is. I don't know where it started, and it almost doesn't matter. But cutting lanes like that, and when it's just asking for trouble.
It is.
So we're doing that.
Happened to me twice yesterday.
Whoa.
And I had no idea. I mean, that they were, coming.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a wise guy slogan, but it does hold up, and it says, "Loud pipes save lives," and it's people put it on their vest or put them on bumper stickers, but loud pipes do. They do save lives. And but doing, but
is that me?
I believe so. It doesn't matter. It's Crowley.
Loud dings save lives.
Loud dings save radio shows.
You're right.
But I have not really exceptionally loud, but I have loud pipes, and they're just kind of cool. Hey, I want to ask you something, and I bounced this off of Kelly Michaels.
Okay,
and I know the whole world is talking about Joe Biden, and I certainly don't mind doing that at all. But mountain lions. Listen, there's hunting mountain lions. There's something about that. And listen, I'm not anti-hunter, and I'm not that at any stretch of the imagination. They hunt them with hounds, and the dogs run them down or tree them. There's just something about those cats, and I can't tell you. I mean, the wolves, and we collectively hunted the wolves out of the state of Colorado, and then reintroduced the wolves, the gray wolves, and the Mexican, and I wasn't working full time during that time period, but I've been reading a lot about it. And there's this new term that's popped up for the first time. I've never seen it before, and it's called ballot box biology. Interesting term, and it was applied to the wolves. And ballot box biology is an attempt to get voters into supporting a ban on hunting cats, on hunting the mountain lions, the cougars.
Hunting by domestic, or by domestic, not by wolves.
No. Hunting, the cats are being hunted by hunters and with their pack of hounds. Yeah,
I see. Yeah, okay.
I don't know why it bothers me. And
it bothers you that the hunters are doing this.
Yeah, that these cats are. When you hear someone say noble creatures, but
yeah,
but I mean,
but they're beautiful.
They're cool as hell.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Man.
So I don't know. I don't know.
I've never seen one live in the mountains, but the video, after I saw a bear, my younger brother
Ooh.
ran into a whatever it was, a cougar or mountain lion, and he said I couldn't stop staring at it. I was just frozen. I mean, the beauty. It really takes you to a different place.
Somebody
when you're staring at it.
I realize it's just bizarre, but not bizarre in the way talk radio is running right now, and it's all Joe Biden all the time. But I was reading this stuff late last night, and I'm thinking to myself, is that worth a radio show? So
I think so.
I brought a bunch of stuff into work, which shows you once again.
You have stacks of paper.
I did. I stacked the papers and put them in the bike, put them in the trunk,
Nice.
bring them to work, and hey,
Right above the muffler.
right, stink it up, and then come to work.
That's awesome.
That's
what you're going to talk about today?
Well, I don't know. I mean, we also have the Denver mayor introducing this now affordable housing initiative. I mean, this guy, there's no bottom to this guy.
Right.
The new tax increase for more affordable housing.
Oh my God.
No, so he's when you thought you could not get worse.
Yes.
Than the last mayor.
Right?
You did. Nobody can be that bad.
No question. We talk about that every day here.
And now you got this guy. And
I mean, it's incredible. They're putting up all those buildings, and that's going to turn into all affordable housing for people who aren't from here.
Oh yeah,
and the federal government's paying for it.
And then, last but not least, Joe Biden. They say it's the team Biden.
Yeah,
is bracing for a brutal week, and I can only imagine. Yeah, Joe said. Do you see him say no? And then Jill. Did you see Jill saying no?
Yeah, it was going on while you and I were talking yesterday morning, and I was trying to listen to it. And I mean, it is incredible. I don't know what they gave him, but he was just losing it on the phone. So, I mean, he's not. It doesn't look like he's going to step down. Someone's going to have to. This is going to have to be forceful, I think.
Would you bet it?
Yeah, well, see, I told the guys, I told Jeff and Bill, I think it was 24 days ago.
Okay.
I said my over under is, I think it was 30, whatever it was, 34 days.
Okay.
It's down to 8 days now on my thing. I predicted that no matter whatever happens, however they do it, he does it, they do it, they figure it out, whatever. It's down to 8 days today. So, I mean, it's just, we're 8 days away. I don't know what's going to happen in the next week, but I think I'm feeling like something's going to happen by Friday. How about you?
Well, you got Joe in the points.
You do. That's right. I do.
You got Joe.
I have Joe on the points.
You got Joe on the I'm sitting there going, wait a minute. He's got Joe on the points.
Absolutely.
I don't know if Biden wrote this 2-page letter that they said we have 42 days to the Democrat convention and 119 days to the general election. Like, that's nothing.
Yeah.
And they want the letter distributed as if. I mean,
crazy.
There's blood in the water. This guy.
Man, you've seen it all. This has got to be fascinating to you. Or not. Maybe not.
No, I read it every night. I sit and read it, especially now getting to do the show again. But man, you're watching people come after him. People you would think were allies.
Right.
When your own guys are on you.
They turn quickly.
Oh, yeah. It's been talked about was the moment that Nixon had to go. And he didn't have to go because of Pat, or he didn't have to go because of anybody around him. He had to go because of the Senate power brokers who told him.
That's right.
Told him, you can't, when it was, as they say, the limos came and they said, Dick, it's time. You can't win. You can't win it. You will be impeached. Remember, he's the unindicted co-conspirator, as, by the way, is Donald Trump. But when you look at this stuff, and I don't know. I mean, the other thing too, as long as the cameras are on Joe, they're nowhere else.
Right.
And you got to believe the Trump people were like taking a breath of.
Heck yeah. That's right.
Well, we
Let it all unfold.
Remember your coach would tell you, blow. You know? No, seriously.
Breathe. Let it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let it breathe.
Yeah. Breathe.
Yeah.
Blow. Okay.
No doubt.
Get back in there.
Absolutely. let them fail. We can win by them failing.
There's a wonderful line that says, when your enemy is destroying himself,
yes,
do not try to help. Seriously.
That's right.
Do not try to help.
Exactly.
Let them burn down.
Lead from behind.
No, that's why you're called a leader, because you're in the front.
Yeah.
You're not in the back, but it's still, man, it's pretty twisted.
Yeah.
So real quick to you, and then take the news, and then I wish you were going to be with me for 4 hours. Would it be conceivably the greatest comeback in history if Uncle Joe made a comeback?
Absolutely.
Have to be, wouldn't it?
No, it would. There's no doubt. I can't think of very many other better comebacks than that.
You think about
because he's physically going to get worse.
Yeah.
Every day.
Do you think he could, like, he's got his
mentally?
Yeah, he got his gloves on the canvas, and do you think they can stand him up?
Yeah,
brush his gloves off, get back in there. No,
I can't think of a better comeback. No way.
By the way, sidebar, because we're trying to get the guy on the show. I finished the Billy Conn, Joe Lewis book yesterday afternoon.
Oh, you did? Oh, wow. Golly, what? I got to read that thing.
You know, and I've always read and listened to stories about Billy Conn, the Pittsburgh Kid, but this is round by round what leads up to it, and then the aftermath of what happens to these two great fighters. I mean, they're just great fighters, and how their lives, they stay together, and as old men. Well, men, they remain good friends, and then what happens to them in the end. But that fight, my dad and his brothers and everybody, all claim. I mean, there were more. It was in the polo grounds in New York.
Oh, that was in the polo grounds.
They fought in the polo, but
wow,
there wasn't enough seats for all the Irishmen to claim they saw that fight.
That's funny. Everyone was there, right?
Yeah, and then there was a second fight that was just, it wasn't any good. But
yeah,
that first one must have been something.
Oh man, that is so cool. Are there photos in there in that book?
Just
a few.
Yeah, you can go on YouTube and you can see black and white from that fight. It still exists,
man.
but. So I'm reading that, and I'm reading the life of Stanley Ketchel. And
Stanley Ketchel,
one of the all-time great unknown fighters, who was probably murdered. They murdered Stanley Ketchel, but all those guys, they were just legendary guys, legendary fighters. All right,
and they were definitely, at the time, they were the best athletes of their time, no doubt.
I still argue that prize fighters are. Certainly in the top 2 or 3 in terms of fitness.
Right. Oh, fitness and quickness and quick twitch, muscle twitch, and, agility, balance, everything, vision. My 13-year-old, he was like, Dad, we got to watch this fight. I don't follow it anymore, but we watched that. I think it's Stevenson, it was over the weekend.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, and he was like, why do they call it the sweet science? Why?
It's always
look at him.
Yeah.
I mean, watch him. I mean, he's just, he's bobbing and weaving and moving. I mean, he could play corner on defense. He could play receiver. He could play basketball if he really wanted to. Great athlete.
The history of prize fighting is the history of the underclass of America.
Oh, yeah.
And if you look at the history of prize fighting in this country, professional boxing for money, for the prize, it is the history of the underclass.
Yep.
And, that's what makes Joe Lewis so tremendous, is it was able to come through that wall. But
no doubt,
there were the Irish fighters, and now it's a lot of Russians.
Sure is. Yeah. That tells you a lot. A lot of Eastern Europeans.
The history of the underclass.
Absolutely. And they're tough as hell.
The Italians were there for a long time. Graziano, Marziano, and those guys. No, it's just it's a wonderful way to read history. It's like
It is.
through prize fighting. All right, I've had enough of them.
All right,
I've
man.
spoken way too long.
All right, can't wait. We're going to talk cats and all that. I can't
That's
wait
right.
to hear you. Love to hear you. It's Tuesday morning.
Go get 'em.
Peter's here at 55 and sunny in Denver, expecting highs in the upper 80s, or actually we may get to 90 today. The 710 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, a United flight out of LA Monday lost a landing gear tire as it took off. The Boeing 757 continued on to DIA, where it managed to land without incident. The landing gear has several tires, letting it land safely, and if it loses one, so the FAA is investigating.
Is anyone in the White House hiding information about the president's health or his ability to do the job day to day?
Absolutely not. Pelosi said it's a legitimate question to ask if this is an episode or is this a condition.
Oh, the White House reporters doing some journalism on Monday. The White House released a letter from President Biden's doctor after a contentious press briefing Monday over visits to the White House by a Parkinson's disease specialist. James Comer, House Oversight Committee, wants to know more.
There are only two people that I can find in Washington, D.C. that want Joe Biden to remain in the race, and that's the Biden family and his White House physician, both of whom are in a lot of trouble in these Biden family influence peddling schemes. And I find it ironic that now the media is reporting that there are cover-ups involved in the president's health. That's obvious to every American. But the main character in the cover-up was also involved in the influence peddling schemes. And that's why we want to bring this physician in, ask him questions under oath, and we'll release the transcript.
Monday night, the White House put out a memo from a presidential physician, Dr. Kevin O'Connor, who said the visits from the neurological specialists were part of Biden's annual physicals and that all results have been made public. O'Connor said the neurologist also makes visits in support of military personnel assigned to the White House. Former President Trump on with Hannity last night.
And they still are sort of covering, but now it's getting very difficult to do that. And, you know, it looks to me like he may very well stay in. He's got an ego and he doesn't want to quit. He doesn't want to do that. It just looks to me like that's what he wants. I think Jill would like to see him stay. She's having a good time. I notice she really seems to be having a good time. And I'm hearing that Hunter is calling the shots. So this isn't necessarily a very positive thing for our country.
Well, you got that right. President Biden will host a high-stakes NATO summit in D.C. this week to mark the 75th anniversary of the alliance. National Security Council spokesman John Kirby, who sounds like he took puberty blockers, said that NATO is stronger due to Biden's leadership over the last 3 years, noting the addition of Finland
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Can you believe that? Isn't that funny?
Great line. Great line of the week.
Thanks, man.
Oh, it's sweet. Go ahead.
Isn't
I'm
that
sorry.
beautiful? Denver Mayor Mike Johnston, there are two in there, but Denver Mayor Mike Johnston has announced a proposal to increase the city's sales tax. As Peter was just talking about, Johnson aims to use the 0.5% sales tax increase to raise $100 million a year to go toward affordable housing in Denver. Governor Polis has issued a disaster declaration due to the avian flu outbreak in Weld County. The outbreak was reported at a poultry facility, though there's no word on when it began or how many animals were affected. Major progress to report in Colorado's only active wildfire. It's now 69% contained after scorching about 1,300 acres. Flames sparked over 2 weeks ago in Pueblo County and then spread to Custer County. Those living in Beulah can also breathe a sigh of relief now that the pre-evacuations are over. And Beryl is now weakened into a tropical depression. As of the last update from the National Hurricane Center, the storm was east-northeast of Tyler, Texas, with a maximum sustained winds of 35 miles per hour, 8 people have lost their life in that storm. News brought to you by Lair Fireplace and Patio, Denver's premier source for everything fireplace, patio, and grills, locally owned and operated since 1954, online at lairfireplaceandpatio.com. The Reds beat the Rockies 6-zip, and first pitch today, 5:10 in Cincy, 51 in Castle Pines, 52 in Arvada, 55 in Denver. Pete continues in for Jeff and Bill all week long. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Your 710 5-day forecast, sunny, dry, near 90 today, getting hotter. Temperatures in the low 90s on Wednesday. Slight chance of an isolated thunderstorm. Upper 90s Thursday, upper 90s and lower 100s. Friday through Sunday with only isolated thunderstorms. Nights will be 50s and 60s. Weather sponsored by Branch Planning. Some income annuities are paying 25 to 45% more than last year. Get a free retirement review by calling Branch Planning today at 720-651-9800. Find out more at branchplanning.com. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Tuesday morning, everybody. Good morning. The 9th morning of July, 2024. Get it right. And you heard the weather, 90 the high. It's Tuesday, 92 Wednesday. Lines are wide open, 303-696-1971. Jeff and Bill back next Monday morning. And I just in passing, talking to Blake, talked about reading about hunting mountain lions, hunting cats. A text already. My opinion on hunting big cats, no treeing or use of dogs. And that's how it's done. The best of my knowledge from reading, and I've been reading off and on about it and thinking, should I write about it? Should I bring it to the radio show? But you can't do it any other way. Those things are just incredible. And I don't know. It's touchy-feely. But there's this new term that I've been reading about ballot box biology, that the wolves were ballot box biology, that a bunch of greenies who never, they say have never been on a farm in their lives or on a ranch, bring back, and it was to bring back the wolves. The ballot box biology is to want you to support the ban. And I thought I want to bring it to the show, and I realize it's not as near as significant as the other things we have to talk about, but hunting mountain lions and bobcats. And I like cats a lot. I don't know if I'm a dog guy or a cat guy, but I like them both. But mountain lions and bobcats, and they run them down with dogs, and they tree them, and then apparently shoot them out of the tree. 303-696-1971. Wolves again. We hunted wolves all the way to the end, and now they had to bring their gray wolves and Mexican wolves had to bring them back. The other big one, of course, is the President of the United States and his wife, Dr. Jill. How long will this guy last? I mean, I like that a lot. How long will he last? He can't go much further. We're going to start with some phone calls. Okay. We'll go with Dino. Dino, you're on the radio show. Good morning. It is a Tuesday.
Hey, Peter Studstall, how are you?
Brother, man, I'm good.
I'm in Arkansas here. Getting the effects of the rain from that barrel.
Woo.
That's what you do. I'm down here now. I just read a couple of your reports. I'll be around the horn quick. Johnson's he's raising a tax increase. It's probably for the sponsor homelessness, I guess.
Oh, no, of course.
0.5%.
No, of course.
Unbelievable. This guy's
course.
unbelievable. That goof. Anyhow, you mentioned Beryl. This hurricane's named Beryl. That was one of Barney Ross's middle names. His
That's
full
right.
given name was Barnett Beryl David Rosofsky. He changed it to Barney Ross.
Well, they changed their names to get fights.
Well, sure. Sure. One example you have of a big time guy, not to totally interrupt you, you always used to say that Jews used to change their name to Irish names, whatever.
Hmm.
Well, the biggest example is that tremendous lightweight out of Chicago. It was in my dad's stable, and but that was his project. David Deitch was his name, but he went by Davy Day.
Oh, listen,
Yeah.
it wasn't until guys like Battling Levinsky and those guys showed up that they fought with, Hebrew names, with Jewish names, but
Sure.
because they were little guys, and the Irish were the little fighters, with some exceptions, John L. and others, but they used, as they said, Iberian names, and that's the only way they could get. Hey, anybody gets in the ring's got heart, but
You mentioned Billy Conn, of course. A lot of people don't realize this. The last 2 months of his training, he left Pittsburgh. He went to Chicago to train. He went to fight at Trafton's gym. And he would charge his handlers $1 to watch the fans during the Depression for a workout, just to watch them train.
Well,
and the richer people, they paid it. They paid the buck to see him.
Well,
He was very popular and all that. Yeah.
I didn't realize that his mother, he was very close to his mother. His mother was dying. And he was in New York, and he would come home, literally, and they come in a car. They'd come back.
It's a long drive, yeah.
To come back and he'd see his mother, and then he'd go back. And the last time they saw one another, he said to her, "When I come back in here, I will be the heavyweight champion of the world." And she passed after the fight, after the Lewis fight. But I mean,
he's like he used to say, he zigged when he should have zagged. He knew after the fight he should have stood away from it.
They told him, in his corner. That's all. My father talked about it. My uncles talked about it. I mean, every Irishman in Pittsburgh. I was born off of Negley Avenue, in a rental off of Negley Avenue. And that was Billy's stomp, and we'd see Billy, and his son Timmy and Billy Jr. You
told the story once when he really hit the big time. He was walking around with his neighbor and so forth. He recognized when he was a little kid. He recognized the bully was picking on him. Beat the hell out of him.
Beat him up. The kid beat him up in kindergarten. No, he came off the porch. And you remember one of my favorite movies. One of my favorite movies is Good Will Hunting. And they're driving around in a car, and they spot the kid on the playground. And it was some kid that scored on them when they were in high school or something. They pulled the cars over, got out of the car, and they all got in a big fight. And then he had his father-in-law was a guy named Greenfield Jimmy Smith, and then he and Greenfield get into it, and he's supposed to go to the second fight, and he hits Greenfield on the top of the head, and he breaks his hand, and he can't. I mean, they're the Irish. They beat each other to death, but the real force in that is Joe Louis. Oh my heavens. I mean,
he did everything. That Frank Sinatra, of course, paid for his funeral and all that stuff.
I thought that as well. And no, Max Schmeling did.
Oh, yeah.
Schmeling.
He probably one of the other guys of Sinatra. Sinatra paid Lee J. Cobb owed $30,000 to the mob. He lost a big gambler, lost a lot, and Sinatra paid that off.
Well, he didn't. He didn't pay.
Interesting.
He didn't pay for Lewis's funeral, although he took care of Lewis and got Lewis a job as a greeter in Vegas,
at Caesar's Palace.
At Caesar's, that's right. But it was Schmeling who came and paid for Joe's funeral. But
nice marble statue of Joe Louis inside Caesar's Palace at the sports.
Final thing,
nice.
I met Joe Louis. Yeah. That's one of my claims to fame. I shook Joe Louis's hand, and his son is here. He's Barrow.
James Barrow.
Because that's
friends of Joe Williams.
That's Louis. That's how I met him. It was through the hitman. But Joe, when they moved to Detroit, then Joe didn't want to fight because his mother didn't want him to fight. So his middle name is Lewis, and his last name is Barrow, Barrow.
He just kept Lewis. It's easier.
He just fought as Joe Louis. Yeah, and And there's
Well,
there's a great story in about Muhammad Ali and Joe, and Joe had the thing called the Bum of the Month, where he I think in 7 months he knocked out, or 8 months he knocked out 9 guys or something. And Muhammad challenges him, and Muhammad says, "Do you think you could have beat me?" And he talked about the Bum of the Month tour, and Bum of the Month, and Joe looked at him. Joe said, "You'd have been on the tour."
Knock them stiffer than a board.
Oh,
Yeah, he always said that. So yeah. Well, yeah, they're very confident. They're very proud.
You'd have been on.
That's sure.
Yeah. So anyhow, the book is entitled. It's entitled Joe Louis and Billy Conn, and it's a real, inside look. And if you're not a fight fan, it's not much, but it's about how powerful radio was, and how Dunphy gets the job calling the fight, and then he stays calling the fights even when I was a kid.
Radio.
Yeah,
the big radio announcer in those years, though, for any fights or any racing, anything, was Clem McCarthy. He was a big time radio announcer.
But Dunphy comes in, and they actually they do auditions. So who's going to call the Lewis Conn fight? And up until that was the highest, best of their knowledge, being able to weigh and measure. The highest listened to was that fight. Even more so than FDR's Fireside Chat. No, yeah, they fought in 41 before the war, and then Joe. They both went in the military and became friends as old men. And there's a final anecdotal story where Joe Barrow goes to meet Billy Conn in Pittsburgh, and they're walking around the house in Squirrel Hill, and Billy keeps saying to Joe, it's Joe Louis' son, "How do you like the house? How do you like the house?" And so after the third or fourth time, Joe Barrow says, "Why do you keep asking me how if I like your house?" And Billy said, "Because your dad bought this for me." Isn't that a great? He said, "Your dad bought this for me."
Well, Lewis was a great humanitarian.
I got a break. I got that meaning that fight. You too, man. All right, the book is Joe Louis and Billy Conn. 303-696-1971. We have one line open. I'm Peter Boyles. Good morning, everyone. It's 710 KNUS.
At this hour in the UK, I'm John Beaver, and here are the top stories we're following. A day of mourning is being observed in Ukraine after at least 41 people were killed and more than 160 injured in missile strikes across the country. 2 people died when the children's hospital in Kyiv was hit on Monday during the most bloody day in Ukraine for months. The Russian attacks have been condemned by the international community. President Biden called them a horrific reminder of Russia's brutality. More than 2 million customers in Texas remain without power after Hurricane Beryl slammed into the Gulf Coast on Monday. The storm brought powerful winds, torrential rains and flooding, leaving at least 3 people dead. Tony Waterman has more from Austin.
Restoring power is the top priority right now. The heat index in the greater Houston area is expected to hit 105 degrees Fahrenheit or 40 degrees Celsius on Tuesday and Wednesday, posing a fresh danger for those who just escaped the worst of this hurricane. Heat kills more than twice as many people in the U.S. every year than hurricanes and tornadoes combined. This storm is now tracking north, bringing with it more rain and storms in the coming days. In Austin, Tony Waterman, Salem News Channel.
And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm John Beaver in the UK on Salem News Channel.
I'm Peter Boyles in for the fellows. They'll be back next Monday. I do this week, and then Saturday morning. It's a Tuesday. 90 is going to be the high. 92 tomorrow. We have one line open. We go to the phones. We go to Jay. Jay, good morning, man. Thanks for calling the show.
Hey, I appreciate all you do.
Ah.
Now, there's a thing here, being a farmer and a rancher is with those wolves things, those things affect our profit margins.
Oh, I understand.
Like coyotes and stuff like that. So, it's one thing for these people to see you want to protect something and save a species, but when they affect somebody's personal life, these people that are against, it's kind of like goes back to like a bureaucratic stuff. Well, it doesn't affect their life if they live in a complex or they live in the city, but when it affects your profit margin, therefore, what is a person supposed to do? They want to bring them back.
Well, they did.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
But they don't understand who it affects.
Yeah, and listen, I am more on your side, but it's interesting. Let's drop to a place, prairie dogs, and see, and ranchers and farmers despise prairie dogs. And one of the great moments in talk radio, there were these two tree-hugging young women who wanted to save the prairie dogs, and it was
I remember that one.
Prairie dogs were in Broomfield. I think that I'm trying to remember, and they wanted to save them,
relocate them.
They very good, them. Absolutely. So she said, "No, they're doing these terrible things to prairie dogs." And I sidetracked and I said, "Do you mind if I ask you an unrelated question?" "Oh no, go ahead." And I said, "How do you feel about abortion?"
Nicely done.
Thank you very much. Nice shot. Nice shot, Booth. But they get up and they booked. They left the studio, and I thought to myself, these are rats. And if you talk to friends of mine that farm and ranch, and I suspect yourself, prairie dogs break legs of stock when they fall in the holes, and snakes go in there, and all these different things. But
there's more to that. They also eat a lot of the grass that our cattle need.
And they have plague.
For feeding.
Yeah, they have plague and all. But wolves, in getting ready to do the show, and didn't know if this was fly or not, there hasn't been a wolf in the state of Colorado for years until they brought them back and reintroduced them. In essence, we killed them off. Now,
okay, I understand that. But we have to see the whole circle of life of how. You want pepperoni on your pizza?
No,
that's all you want.
Very good.
You want cheese? You want milk?
Yeah, your
to
points.
Make it cheese.
Your points again were very well taken. Absolutely. But so then the same thing comes along where people move into the mountains, and then they have Chi-Chi, their dog. They put the little Chi-Chi outside, and here comes the mountain lion. That's 7-Eleven, right? Mountain lion hooks the fence, gets Chi-Chi, and and that's lunch. So, what's right? What's wrong?
Well, they don't see the whole picture to enjoy the whole pepperoni on their pizza and the cheese from the milk from the cows, where you got to protect the cattle, the whole circle of life. Yeah. But they want buy a calendar or put a picture of the thing on your wall, okay? But when you're affecting the things that you consume, that's my overall circle. You're affecting the things that you consume. You want beef on your taco? You want this on? No,
your point. I'm absolutely, Jay. This starts with, this new term, and I'm reading about it for a couple of days, so it's still new to me. It's called ballot box biology. Have you ever heard that term before?
No, I have not.
No, I neither. Until 2 days ago, I didn't either. But it's an attempt. They have voters, and again, the wolves are another example of ballot box biology, and left of center, principally green, activists, and when I was reading about, again,
I bet that's an interesting read. I bet that is a very interesting
Google it.
read.
Just
yeah, I will.
It'll turn up. But so what do we do?
Well, they don't. How do we change? How do we get those people to see the whole circle of life?
They don't have to. That's the problem. It's like,
Well, they
yeah.
got to eat too.
Well,
It
listen.
doesn't matter if they're vegan or whatever have you. I mean, we got to grow plants. How do we grow plants? I mean, everything revolves in a circle, whether it be a vegan, whether it be a plant, whether it be, diesel fuel to put in to plant your plants, whether it be gas.
Listen, I gotta do this. I gotta break with apologies. This is 710 KNUS. morning, everybody. 710 KUS, Denver's talk station. I'm Peter Boyles. Good to have everyone here. Another one of those open lines cruising along mornings. It's July the 9th, 2024, and it's going to be 90 for a high today. Go to the phones. Unique name, Gunga Din. Gunga Din, you're on the show.
Hi there. Let's see. I finished reading The Death of Innocence, and that was on
it's a joke.
Saturday.
That's a joke.
Yeah.
The book's a joke.
Oh, well, boy, that is such a, that's really a baffling situation.
No, it's not. It's not a.
It's pretty obvious.
She's talking about the Ramseys.
Patsy,
She's talking about the Ramseys. That was the book. No, it's
right.
It's not a whodunit, ma'am.
Yeah.
Remember this: the grand jury wanted to indict them both for the murder of that little girl.
Okay.
Everything else, and I guess Netflix is doing something, and they have all the usual suspects. And The Death of Innocence is a. It's just listen. When I tell you this,
you're mentioned twice in that book.
I'm surprised.
Your name.
Yeah, I'm surprised only twice. They don't like.
Right.
They do not like me.
No, they didn't like you.
Well, we told the truth. It's like so many things.
Yeah.
John.
That is such a mystery, though.
It's not.
I think it was Patsy. I believe it was Patsy, not John. But unfortunately, John is the one, supposedly, according to this book that they wrote together. He's the one that found the body.
Well, there's this.
And how did that child get wrapped in a garret?
Because that's how her mother eventually takes her life. Remember this, and the Alex Hunter was the district attorney, and the grand jury sat and they saw everything that certainly I never saw or no one else totally ever saw, and when they came back, they wanted to indict them both.
Right.
And of course, Alex Hunter did not pull the pin, and the grand jury is silenced.
Right.
And so finally, one of them does break silence and tells a very reputable reporter that grand jury wanted to indict John and Patsy Ramsey for the murder of that little girl, both of them. And so after all of the hoorah and after all the double talk and after all the lies and after all the Paula Woodwards and all the other nonsense that went with it, the truth is what happened. I bet 98.7% accurate on everything I believe that happened from the night that they left the home of Fleet and Priscilla White till the next day. I mean, I think you notice they don't go around suing people.
Right.
You ever notice that? They don't want to go into court. It's the same thing. Why do you? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So young. John was just 62 when he died. Right. And Patsy was 48.
Well, John Ramsey's still alive.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, he lives in Michigan. He ran for office in Michigan. I think he's back. I think he maybe lives in Atlanta now. Lives in Buckhead, but
yeah, right. Atlanta is where they have their other home. Right.
They had a home in a vacation place called Charlevoix, Michigan, and they were going to they were going to go there that morning, and that was what they did. And,
oh boy!
And that
was such a tragedy.
Well, it only becomes what it becomes when the Boulder cops blow it, and
exactly.
The Ramseys have lawyers, and
I read both books.
What's the
one written by starts with a K.
Perfect Murder, Perfect Town.
Perfect Time.
Yeah.
Town.
Yeah.
Right. I read that first, and then I read this one. So.
Now, there's Paula Woodward had a book written until the story broke that the grand jury was going to indict them. And I don't know if she ever published it or not. She's a total apologist for the Ramseys. Yeah, I mean, it's They should just be shunned. That's, what's left of them. Yeah.
But they're rich and powerful. Oh, and in that book, they talk about how they're kind of running out of money with all these lawyers they had to buy.
They had to.
Right.
But remember, John had just sold his business, and
yes, yeah.
They were by no stretch of the imagination poor people.
Poor, no.
But let this, and for everybody listening or not listening, or anytime the murder of that little girl comes up, remember the grand jury in Boulder, Colorado wanted to indict both of them.
Right.
Both of them.
Yeah.
And
right.
And
because John was covering it up for her.
Oh, he was
Patsy.
He stepped in.
Right. Right.
When
sure did.
Whenever
and he found the body. Right.
No, he knew it was there.
Right. Oh.
I mean, he can also see in the dark. By the way, he could see in the dark that the body was in. No, John Ramsey knew. Patsy Ramsey knew.
Right.
Because they had done it.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
God, that's unbelievable. But how did they tie her body in a garrote? Patsy
takes the body down. She had a paint box that no one else knew where it was, and she did. And she used the fulcrum on the garrote as half of one of her paintbrushes. Now, the basement of the Ramseys' home is like a rabbit warren. What intruder? There was no intruder. What intruder would know exactly where to go to the paint box to get the paintbrush, to break it, to use it to garrote the little girl? No, she's Patsy's.
Yeah.
I mean, sick only begins there. And there's a great line in Recovery, and it goes like this: the alcoholic has a disease. The person who stays with the alcoholic is sick.
That's right.
And so John Ramsey is probably sicker than Patsy.
Mm-hmm.
And
maybe so. God.
What they wanted was they wanted to get out of it. And in fact they did, but she's dead now, and he runs around now, and he only shows up.
What happened, Bert? What happened with Bert? He was a troubled child.
Well, we got a second to do this, boss. We got 1 minute. Burke Ramsey, he ended up on Dr. Phil, but it was later Alan Pendergast pointed it out that the guys who ran the Inquirers, same guys that they were taking, that the whole Donald Trump scandal was about, they had taken care of Dr. Phil because of a divorce settlement, and there was all these. So one of the requests, and it was, give me a second, I'll even tell you the lawyer's name, but he fixed it. And so Burke Ramsey appeared on Dr. Phil. And yeah, I mean, he's just a sad, I'm sorry. He's he didn't have it. He's just a sad kid. No. There's my music. Thank you, Dung. Thank you, Dung. Gunga Din, man, first time. 710 KNUS open lines continue. Are we waiting now? How much longer is this going to last before Joe Biden hits the bricks? A lot more. It's open lines 303-696-1971. You stay here. And there we are. Good morning, everyone. Doing a little backstage with Kelly Michaels. I'm Peter Boyles. It's a Tuesday morning, July the 9th, 2024. That all ties together. 710 KNUS Denver's talk station. We already have a couple of lines lit up in an open line segment. But first and foremost, ladies and gentlemen, Blake Olson makes the world go round. The opening part of the show this morning was great, man. We're talking about wolves and everything that goes with. Yeah, so Blake's got the news, and we were talking about hunting cats, and then we started talking about Joe Biden. I thought, well, what's the difference?
Great point.
And you got the
they're both dangerous.
Yeah, they're both endangered species. But
endangered species.
You got you got the overs and unders on this, right?
Yeah, man. I think I'm down to 8 days. So
Joe and
but now, man, I go back and forth. I listen to this stuff, and then I change my mind 10 minutes later. I mean, he is dug in, obviously, but I don't know. Something tells me Friday, something's going to happen right before the weekend.
Use Nixon as your model.
Okay.
There was no way Nixon was going to leave. In fact, told his daughter, Tricia, came in, and your father's not a crook, all that kind of stuff. And he held the course. And even though his wife, Pat Nixon, whose real name is Thelma, and Thelma Ryan is Pat Nixon, and her father was a prospector, some Irishman, and she must have been something, but she knew. She had put it together that come on, and but the girls who just adored their father, they wouldn't, and so I don't know.
Man.
Nixon.
How long did that drag on? It felt like it was a week.
Oh, sure. Remember, from the break-in until then the crimes began to be discovered. And then the Ellsberg stories and all the stuff that went with it. And then guys started rolling over and making deals. And they finally get down to Nixon's doorstep when John Wesley Dean III, there's one, and his lovely wife Maureen, and I talked to Gordon Liddy, man. When Gordon Liddy came out of the joint, and then we became kind of friends, and then
that's what I thought.
He was in Sturgis, and talked to him, and he hated John Dean.
That must have been fat. How long did you talk to him? I mean,
when he came out from prison, he'd been in Lewisburg, and he wrote a novel. Everybody remembers the book Will, about him holding his hand over the candle. But he had written a novel when he was in Lewisburg, and everything. It was like Denver media, and they were kind of spooked to the guy. And I was working at BZ, KWBZ, the mother of all battles, right?
Yep.
And I said, I want him, and I opened up that old wooden door, and he's standing there with that spiked haircut, and he wasn't big. He wasn't a big guy.
He wasn't.
And
how tall was he?
Oh, I'm a little guy. I'm 5'10".
Was he taller than you?
No. I think he was about 5'9".
Was he?
Yeah, but he had the white raincoat on, the tie.
Right.
And then we ended up and he'd been an FBI agent here.
Wow.
And he was, remember the Coors kidnapping?
Yeah.
He worked the Coors kidnapping.
Did he?
Yep.
Oh, I didn't know that.
He was a Fed.
Wow.
And then we had lunch.
Oh,
he didn't know
crazy.
it. And he had lived
there.
When
he only had a cell phone back then, so you could record it
or take a picture.
Or take a picture. Yeah,
but and then he got into talk radio.
Wow.
And he had a talk show, and he did. It was syndicated. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
So he went to everybody loved him. He went to Sturgis, and so
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that.
I sent my card back, and they came out and got me and talked, and he was
that's awesome.
And he was one of the great Gordon Liddy lines. Liddy was a convicted felon, of course, and so he was not allowed to own a gun. So Gordon Liddy said, I don't have any guns. He said, my wife has 35 of them. Gordon Liddy. That's
awesome.
Oh, just sit and talk. He hated John Dean. God, he hated John Dean.
Oh, yeah.
But
that's why I liked him.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, it was like, I still see John Dean appears on on CNN. He's still like he's still a weasel. He is a rat.
Right.
He ratted out Nixon.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
But they hated him, but he was with all of the plumbers, and he was when he died. Man, I went. Hey, we talked to his producer when he died.
That must have been fascinating.
John, and they knew everybody. I was talking to my daughter about it last night. They knew.
Is that right?
They were present at the creation. They had a little office, and then somebody had taken a pad and a paper and pencil and wrote plumbers. Here's your round two.
Ah, got it.
And that's right. And they wrote plumbers because they were there to stop the leaks, right? So they put some wag to this day, and I don't think anyone knows, put the sign over the door that said plumbers, and that's who they became, the plumbers unit.
Wow.
And
wow.
Yeah, well, they were crazy. They were all crazy.
So much.
Way crazy.
And we probably don't know half of it. Right?
I agree.
Or not. Right?
A third.
Okay.
A third.
Exactly. Right. That's what I always think about when I'm looking at this stuff.
Think it.
Oh,
can you imagine what's going on right now in the White House?
Oh, goodness. Wow.
I mean,
it's just chaos.
Oh,
just craziness. I mean, you can think of the most dysfunctional family on your block, and they can't even come close to this.
No.
Right?
No matter how crazy.
The more money and power, the crazier it gets. Wow.
I think it's like here's one, and maybe a good on-air question: is it going to get worse before it gets better? I think. It is. Oh, thank you. I do too.
I agree. No, I definitely think so. Yeah.
Here's one that came up with: what if Joe Biden drops Kamala Harris and appoints Barack Obama as his vice president?
Well, wait a minute.
Yes. Then who would become president again?
Yeah, but I don't think that's you can.
I don't know.
No, I don't think he can do that.
I don't know.
He's already the president right now.
He's in there right now.
He's already running things. Are you kidding me?
Imagine this thing, man. I mean,
yeah,
they're back in the Capitol today, which is going to be showdown for the first time since that debate. And that's the first time they're all back in the saddle. And my boy.
Oh, here we go.
All right, sir.
Plenty of entertainment. Love it. All right. Here we go. Pete, 59 and sunny in Denver. Expecting highs in the upper 80s today and probably 90 degrees. The 710 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration has ordered California-based Monique Trucking to halt operations due to public safety concerns. The company employed Ignacio Cruz Mendoza, who's accused of causing that deadly crash on US 285 near Conifer last month. Investigators say the company has been egregiously non-compliant with regulations and doesn't have a drug testing program for its employees and failed to make sure its employees have valid commercial driver's licenses. Authorities say Cruz Mendoza didn't have a valid license. The U.S. EPA and the Colorado Department of Public Health say the Suncor refinery in Commerce City is in violation of the Clean Air Act. The agencies say the refinery is improperly releasing benzene, a chemical that is highly toxic. A United flight out of L.A. Monday lost a landing gear tire as it took off. The Boeing 757 continued on to DIA, where it managed to land without incident. The FAA is investigating.
He had a cold and a bad night. I would not see this as an episode.
Are you being straight with the American people?
So are you saying that the majority of Americans are misguided and that they just need to trust Dr. O'Connor and take him at his word? I have engagement with the president pretty regularly.
So crazy. Reporters not named Peter Ducey asking tough questions all of a sudden at the White House. The White House released a letter from President Biden's doctor after a heated press briefing Monday over visits to the White House by a Parkinson's disease specialist. Monday night, the White House put out a memo from presidential physician Kevin O'Connor, Dr. Kevin O'Connor, who said the visits from the neurologist specialist were part of Biden's annual physicals and that all results have been made public. The House Oversight Committee and James Comer, they want to know more.
There are only two people that I can find in Washington, D.C. that want Joe Biden to remain in the race, and that's the Biden family and his White House physician, both of whom are in a lot of trouble in these Biden family influence peddling schemes. And I find it ironic that now the media is reporting that there are cover-ups involved in the president's health. That's obvious to every American.
And then former President Trump on Fox last night.
I think he, might very well stay in, and if he does, nobody wants to give that up that way. He's going to feel badly about himself for a long time. It's hard to give it up that way, the way where they're trying to force him out. So, I mean, you really have to speak to his doctors, but obviously he's been sheltered by the fake news media. That's why they call it the fake news.
He promises a major announcement.
Yeah, he's announcing he's been alive for the last 2 years.
That would be a bombshell.
Biden will host a high-stakes NATO summit in D.C. this week to mark the 75th anniversary of the alliance. National Security Council spokesman John Kirby said NATO is stronger due to Biden's leadership. Denver Mayor Mike Johnston has announced a proposal to increase the city's sales tax to 0.5% in order to raise $100 million a year to go toward affordable housing. But this is about homelessness and illegal immigrants in Denver, something that Trump also talked about last night.
Illegal migrants that are pouring into our countries, many of them are staying in luxury hotels all over our country. They're being shipped up, as we say now, every state is a border state, whether it's Idaho or Iowa or Ohio. It doesn't make any difference. They're all border because they're pouring through. And if you look at Venezuela, their crime is down 72%. Their crime, think of it, down 72, and ours is up. And we're going to have a new form of crime because these people are just getting comfortable. They're just getting settled in.
Well, in Texas, Beryl has weakened into a tropical depression, but has left millions without power and at least 8 people dead in South Texas. The Reds beat the Rockies 6-0. First pitch today, 5:10 in Cincy, 56 in Parker, 55 in Boulder, 59 in Denver. Peter continues all week long. In for Jeff and Bill, Blake Olson News Talk 710 KNUS.
Your 710 5-day forecast, sunny, dry, near 90 today, getting hotter. Temperatures in the low 90s on Wednesday. Slight chance of an isolated thunderstorm. Upper 90s Thursday, upper 90s and lower 100s. Friday through Sunday with only isolated thunderstorms. Nights will be 50s and 60s. Weather sponsored by Branch Planning. Some income annuities are paying 25 to 45% more than last year. Get a free retirement review by calling Branch Planning today at 720-651-9800. Find out more at branchplanning.com. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Here we go again, everyone. It's a Tuesday. Thanks, Blake. 9 July 2024. Peter Boyles in for Jeff and Bill. They'll be back a week from yesterday. Go back to the phones. Open lines. Catch us, catch can. Talk radio. This is Frank. Frank, man, thanks. Good morning and welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Peter. You sound great.
Oh, you're kind.
I think you should probably call the White House and give them some advice about our president. You might be able to help them out some.
Hey, Boyles is on too.
So somebody brought up Nixon, and
I did.
Yeah, and it's always been a curiosity because I was in my formative years during Nixon and Carter and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in Chicago during the '68 convention. I wasn't in Chicago itself.
Wow.
I lived north of Chicago. My dad was in the Navy during Vietnam, and I was at Great Lakes. He was stationed at Great Lakes Naval Air Station. But anyway, it's always been curious to me how the godless, evil, baby-killing Democrats were able to blame Nixon for Vietnam.
Remember, Watergate wasn't about Vietnam, and Nixon's.
No, I know.
But a second, I would urge you to please read some extended history. Richard Nixon what he told the American people was that he had a secret plan to end the war, and we now know not only, number one, did he not have a secret plan, that he also used his intrigue to block the peace talks that were taking place between the Johnson administration and I think it was Lee Ducteau, perhaps, was the guy, and don't hold me to that. And Nixon wanted to win the election, and Bobby Kennedy's dead. And there's a lot of, it gets back down, as you were there for '68, it gets back down to Hubert Humphrey. Humphrey can't break Johnson's policies on the war. So there was Claire Chennault was this very famous American aviator who had the Flying Tigers and did so much inside of China. And he was married to a woman she was Claire Chennault's wife, but she was wired into the ruling class in China. And so Nixon sends her to speak with Tu and Key, the vice president, the president and the premier of Southeast Asia, or South Vietnam, and says, don't make the Johnson deal. Nixon will get you a better deal. So they, in essence, break off talks. And Lyndon Johnson, Hubert Humphrey supports the Lyndon Johnson policies that were anti-war. The question really is had Bobby Kennedy lived, then, and I'm no Bobby Kennedy fan, but would things have been different? Nixon was probably the smartest man to hold that job. And at the same time was so impossible to understand. And so,
but I mean, my question though, Peter, is, this is what I believe. Now, whether it's true or not, I don't know. What I believe is the godless, evil, baby-killing Democrats, even back then, were able to blame Nixon for Vietnam. Do you think that's true or no?
No, I think that there's the Pentagon Papers speak volumes. Remember, we'll go back. The first American president to send an American GI, Harry Truman, but then Dwight Eisenhower, and then Jack Kennedy. And then becomes this 1964 becomes this thing called the Gulf of Tonkin, where there are two American destroyers, the Maddox and the Turner Joy, both claimed, and it wasn't true, it was a lie, that they had been attacked that night by motor torpedo boats out of North Vietnam. It was a lie. It never happened. And so Lyndon Johnson uses that to the Gulf of Tonkin resolution. It's very much like the stuff that George Herbert Walker Bush did and Dick Cheney did. They're repetitive. There was such had to understand the Cold War, and he had to understand Cuba. You got to understand, what was taking place in the world. And Jack Kennedy, a Democrat, godless, baby-killing Democrat, was the guy who creates the special forces, the Green Berets, and sends these people into warfare schools. And it isn't that simple. And,
well, I think everything gets conflated, of course, because when you look at when Nixon was when he resigned and all that because of just the Watergate situation and everything, they could only pull that off because they were able to blame him for other things that he had nothing to do with. Now not nothing to do with.
You got to be careful there. Yeah, I mean,
they all had something to do with it.
Nixon had more.
They were all guilty.
Nixon had more than something to do with it.
They were all guilty. I agree with that. But
there's no
But
charity.
I have friends to this day who think that Vietnam was Nixon's fault, and I'm like, dude, you can't be even believing that at this point. I mean, I have another friend who was one of the first. He was one of the first quote unquote policemen in. He was on one of the Navy, what do they call those, swift boats?
Mm-hmm.
He was on a swift boat. He was a Marine Corps gunner on a swift boat, and he was one of the first guys in. And they went up the Mekong Delta, up the river, and all that. And it just amazes me how Democrats are able to.
It isn't that simple.
History.
Again, Frank, no one's changing history, and it isn't that simple. What begins as a Cold War, the world is locked after the Second World War. The world relocks itself into the Cold War, and it manifests itself many, many places. But something begins to happen in the world, and they're called wars of national liberation, or protracted wars in the Third World. The British as colonialist, the French as colonialist, the United States replacing.
Well, it's complicated for sure.
But
my daughter's husband he's a Vietnam. His parents were boat people. He's he was born here.
Well,
the history they tell is amazing. They actually have French lineage in their family.
Sure, they are, of course. But remember this: it's the French are there. And the French they treat
Bien Phu.
They treat
Bien Phu.
Well, that's the Legion. In the end, it's the Legion. And then that same Legion goes. Where do they go next? They go to Algeria to try and hold the line again in a protracted guerrilla war, and they lose in Algeria. It hasn't, and that's. I was telling somebody the other day. That's where the jackal comes from. The plot to kill de Gaulle. That was the French colonels, but the world was imploding, and so the United States literally replaces the French. We become the colonialists, whether people want to believe that or not. And so it isn't. It isn't something.
No doubt, it was the dumbest thing. We've done a lot of dumb things.
Really, I'm going to say that's in the top 5. But look again, how and why this is done. Just jump ahead into this modern time. And look at what George Herbert Walker Bush and Dick Cheney did. They told another series of lies. And
pathetic.
But how many young kids, how many people in the Arab world, how much money is spent, how many lives are destroyed? And
we go from, I'll say, I won't say the bad word, I'll say peeing away trillions of dollars on those things to now peeing away trillions of dollars on illegal immigrants. Well, we go from one peeing away dollars to another.
But remember this: all empires fail throughout history. Go back to pick an empire, and then come forward.
The Chinese Empire failed and came back many times.
The Chinese have never been an expansionist, and I was trying to explain this. Other than getting involved in Korea, because Doug MacArthur was kind of baiting them, and what happened in Nepal, the Chinese don't fight expansionist wars. They have their tradition. They have enough problems that they're not.
They're cultural for them,
but they're not the Japanese. They're not. They're not expansionists.
Well, when they start getting stronger as they are right now, and getting stronger and stronger, start spilling over their borders, that could change.
Look, and again, the biggest problems. If you go back and you can read, Red Star over China and Fan Chen and all of those books that were written, and again they were written by pro-Mao sympathizers in the 40s and 50s. Red Star is the one that makes a lot of people, but this guy says, and he makes the case Mao's single biggest problem was feeding people. And to this day, look, the Chinese multinational corporations that are the backbone since after Nixon, the corporate world shifts. But his problem, and of course it's long gone now, but the problem that the Chinese have is make sure everybody eats. And
the biggest problem that they have today is creating 50 million jobs a year.
But they do that, and that's the interesting thing.
I know they do, but it's not easy.
Well,
and we're a problem.
Well,
we're kind of a fly in the ointment for them on that.
Yes and no, because we're their partner. I mean, the Chinese buy our debt. The Chinese, in the reserve, the Chinese buy the reserve. The Chinese buy farmland. The Chinese do these things. Look, they're not fools. And when you
they never have been.
No, they have
you
not.
You don't survive that many years by being idiots.
But they've also been so, abused in the opium wars. And I mean, I don't want to, it goes off into tangents, but the point I'm trying to make is if we collectively don't see our country, and it's one of the moments where you look for clarity, and we have been on a downhill slide simply for all of these reasons that other empires slid. And
I tend to agree that there's incrementally possibly, but it doesn't have to be that way. And I've heard you. I followed you for a long time. I know you believe that, but I don't believe it.
Well, I think the evidence is there. I mean,
I think, like I said, incrementally we're going backwards at the moment, but it doesn't have to stay that way. It can go the other way too. Things go up, things go down.
Remember this, Frank, nothing has to do anything. It's the great lesson of history. If you think it has to, you're probably wrong. On the other hand, the high degree of probability that it will is there because it's done it before.
Well, Peter, I have another question before you run out of time.
Real quick.
Okay, so the earlier, was that yesterday? I guess I was listening to you, and you said that people don't trust the media anymore. And don't take this too literally, but I think you speak a lot of truth about many things, but you also speak untruth about many things.
An example?
And of course, that's subjective.
Give me the example.
Well, the example you brought up today was Trump being an unindicted co-conspirator.
He's called that. He's called the unindicted co-conspirator.
Well, and you called him that, and you agree with the people who call him that.
Frank, no, that's what the RICO.
I don't agree with you on that.
Then go argue with the RICO in Atlanta. Don't argue with me.
Yeah, well, see, those are the experts you choose, and then you agree with those experts.
What do they? Look, Frank. Now I'm beating my head on the wall.
Don't get mad at me.
I'm not, Frank. I'm not mad at you. What I'm saying to you is he is called the unindicted co-conspirator in Atlanta by the RICO, not by Pete Boyles.
And he's called other things by other people.
All right.
So,
enjoyed the call. All right. Go ahead. Finish up. All right. He's called the most valuable player. Well, I didn't call him that. He's the most valuable player. Right now, Donald Trump is the unindicted co-conspirator. Richard Nixon was the unindicted co-conspirator in the Watergate hearings. And had not been for Gerald Ford, he would have been indicted. It's the truth. All right, what does this say? I don't even get it. You shouldn't take political indictments as fact. I didn't say it was a fact. He's called the unindicted co-conspirator by the RICO, Racketeering and Corrupt Organizations, the RICO Act. And who rolled over for the RICO? Oh, let's see. Jenna Ellis. How about the Kraken? Went down and she's Sammy the Bull Gravano. She went down and rolled over and made a deal. And so did the beloved Jenna Ellis, who was beloved so many different places in Colorado. She's a rat. If it was in New York and it was the families in New York, Jenna Ellis is a rat. Back after this on 710 KNUS.
At this hour in the UK, I'm John Beaver, and here are the top stories we're following. Since the first presidential debate, there's been a huge amount of focus on the Democratic contender and whether President Biden is the best man for the job. But on the Republican side, there remains a key unknown: who Donald Trump's running mate is going to be. The former president is expected to make the announcement soon, as our White House correspondent Greg Clugston reports.
With the Republican National Convention a week away, Trump is getting close to naming his choice for vice president. For weeks now, several names have been mentioned as potential finalists, including Senators J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio. North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum is also a possibility. All the contenders have been making public appearances on behalf of the former president. Greg Clugston reporting.
The US has raised concerns with India about its relationship with Russia. It comes as newly re-elected Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi met with President Vladimir Putin in Moscow. A US State Department spokesperson said they hoped anyone engaging with Russia would urge them to respect Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. India has resisted calls by Western allies to distance itself from Russia, highlighting long-term cordial relations and economic ties. And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm John Beaver in the UK on Salem News Channel.
Peter Boyles for the boys. Good morning. It's a Tuesday, July the 9th, 2024. 710 KNUS. Kelly Michaels has the con 303-696-1971. So after that call, I got this text message. And by the way, it's going to be a real hot day today. I'm not sure Trump was an unindicted co-conspirator in the Georgia RICO. I believe he was actually indicted, which I ran out to the computer files to look. And these are and again, a RICO is, of the defendants so far, a number of them have pled guilty in return for some charges being dropped. My close personal friend, Jenna Ellis, is one of them. You all remember the Kraken, and Hall was the other guy, and Chesbrough was the other guy. But here's the list. Donald J. Trump, President of the United States, a RICO count. Rudolph Giuliani, there's a real success story these days. He has also lost his law license. Ray Smith, the list goes on. My good friend, John Eastman, has been indicted in the RICO. It just goes on. Jenna Ellis, obviously, here, but then and Jeffrey Clark, but they make deals. Mark Meadows is on the deal of being indicted. So what happens in a RICO is if you run, the first person in the door gets the deal. If you read, there's a book that I read entitled Getting Gotti and the Gotti Wars were the two books. But they go and they have Sammy Gravano, the underboss, right? And they all been RICO'd when RICO becomes the weapon of choice. And so as organized crime, they've been RICO'd. You read so many things about the RICO Act. So they play the tapes. They have John Gotti on tape saying the things that he was saying about Sammy Gravano. Gravano makes a deal. Simple. He saves his rear end. Sammy Gravano was probably, depending on who you read, 19 murders maybe. And he was placed in he did time, and then he did witness protection, and he got himself in trouble again. Now he's a YouTube star now. So when the Kraken ran to the RICO people and made a deal for herself, and then she did some bizarre things after that. Jenna Ellis, who I think caught one of the sweetest deals of all time, only had her law license lifted for 3 years. She should have gone down a lot harder than that. But Jenna pled guilty in return for some charges being dropped. The Kraken, remember how many times on talk radio they would use the Kraken? Here's the truth. Between Mike Lindell, and they'd run down these lists of these, and Giuliani, and I mean the list of these impossible people. People now apparently walking out or getting out as quickly as they can out of depositions. People who wanted to be deposed, they couldn't wait to be deposed. Now are walking out of depositions or going bankrupt or whatever it is that they're doing. So, sidebar to all of this, and watching everything take place in other places, know for sure, I literally do not know how any of this ends, but my good friend John Eastman has been jammed up in California, has his law license lifted. Giuliani, they just took everything from him, and then he did what he did to those two poor, sad women in that Georgia election case, and now he's supposed to pay them, but I guess he's just having the time of his life on whatever money he has. The same thing is true. Look, Dominion the radio station that I'm sitting here working for had to pay Dominion, and they had to end up they paid they paid that poor fellow that the Dinesh D'Souza did the job on in the Mule movie. Remember, so slowly but surely, incrementally, the truth will out. And so for people not to think that Trump is not part of that, it's interesting to see what's going to happen next. But I don't know. I mean, the parallels with Richard Nixon right now are stronger than they've been probably in forever, between Joe Biden sitting in the Oval Office not knowing what to do, and all the Watergate burglars and all the people that were around John Mitchell and John Dean and Jeb Stuart Magruder. Not why I remember these names, but I do. And they were all the surrounding people that were surrounding Nixon. And they were involved in what becomes known as Watergate. And they're just all finding ways how not to go to jail. And they go. Erickman and Halderman, the boys at the top, they go. John Mitchell goes. All the break-in guys go. Felix Rodriguez goes. Gordon Liddy goes. They went. They went to jail on the back of all things very similar to this. And at the same time, sitting behind the resolute desk is the one and only Richard Nixon, who has, if the stories are true, and he could never drink. Nixon liked to drink, but he couldn't drink. He's one of those guys. And he would get hammered. And they would have these conversations about, it's called the football. The launch codes are being carried, and I think they're carried by a young officer who's assigned to the body of the president. And he or she carries the launch codes in what's called the football in the case. They were going to take the football away. They actually talked about it, and they said, I don't know, what do you think? He's drinking, is he capable of doing this? And they weren't sure. And if the Kissinger's memoirs are correct about standing in the hallway drinking and then wanting Kissinger to pray with him, get down on his knees and pray with him. That's insane stuff going on in these rooms at night, and Pat Nixon locked away by herself and she's drinking. And yet, we're towards the end of the war in Vietnam. The POWs are home, but it's not over, not quite yet. And in the wings is Gerald Ford. Can you come up with a better one? Because I can't. So right now, and whatever you want to talk about in open lines, it's fair game. But Joe Biden, do you think Joe Biden can face the press corps? No. And I read the other night that they cut that interview. He did the interview with Stepan Olivis, that they cut that short. And that's anytime, if you're in the inside of this business, then we got to pause. On the inside of this business, and you hear somebody come up short, I just heard it not too long ago. I heard a interviewer suddenly shut down the interview. Why? Because that interviewer was being embarrassed, number one. Another time I heard it, this interviewer was getting the interviewer's rear end handed to her, and she shut down the interview. So I think this is just a wild guess that somebody is standing off, and Steffi is an operative for the Democratic Party, and looking over his shoulder, and some guy's giving him the cut sign, the palm under the chin, waving it back and forth, get him out of here. Because he was starting to slug. And I found out about this thing called sundowning, that as the day goes on, the dementia gets stronger, that bright and early in the morning, maybe that's why we do morning shows, but bright and early in the morning, you're much better off before the dementia kicks in. So take it where you want to take it. 303-696-1971. Lines are open. And again, I get to do the rest of the week and then do Saturday morning. How much longer does this go on? With the Nixon people, was up until that moment when the power brokers came and said, you got to go. And he didn't know. He didn't know he wasn't going to go to jail. He didn't have that deal in his back pocket. The greatest comeback ever. 303-696-1971. What happens next? 710 KNUS. Good morning, everyone. 710 KNUS, Denver's talk station. I'm Peter Boyles on a Tuesday. With one of those days headed our way, 90 will be the high, 92 on Wednesday, 96 degrees. I have the rest of the week, including Saturday morning, and then the boys are back in town. 303-696-1971. I'm interested always in what people see, what people believe, or what people know, or how they believe what they believe. And we just went through a flare-up, an example of that, of the grand jury. And actually it bounces off talking about the Watergate grand jury. And I had made the statement that is true, that Richard Nixon was always known as the unindicted co-conspirator, a jacket that Donald Trump picked up. And you would think I ran over somebody's dog. And I said, Jenna Ellis is a rat. Now let me go to this. It says, just a second. Jenna Ellis is a rat. Why is Michael Cohen hated by MAGA, but they still embrace Jenna and others? They don't. They don't embrace Jenna. Yeah, she does get airtime. I agree with you to the texter, but no, she's damaged goods. And when you, not that I understand the Georgia RICO, I've simply just read it, but when you read the RICOs in New York, when they started giving people life sentences, and used to be where the old mob bosses could do 5 years or do a nickel, do a dime, and they would come back home. And then they brought in the RICO acts, and the RICOs were double life, triple life. And those old mafiosos, they just weren't going to do that amount of time. So they started making deals, and particularly, the underboss characters, the street bosses, and the warriors as well. The soldiers would make deals because they didn't want to do the time. And so when it got down to John Gotti, and I mentioned there was a book called The Gotti Wars, and then there's Getting Gotti. Both of them are tremendous books. But Sammy Gravano was the way out. And I don't think Jenna Ellis is any Sammy the Bull. However, on the other hand, she wore a glove. On the other hand, we do have the Kraken. And the Kraken very well may be the Sammy Gravano. But she is so spacey right now, what she does. Keep an eye on Giuliani. I still believe that sometime in the near future, Giuliani's going to roll. But he's just become this real sad case. They took him off the air in New York. He's the former mayor of New York. And the indictment that I read quotes all different things that he has said and done. And then he ruined those women's lives, those poor women who were working just as vote counters. And they wrecked their lives. Same thing D'Souza did to this poor guy in this Mules movie. They wrecked their lives. The same thing that happened in Dominion. They destroyed their lives. What do you think? You can do that? You think you're allowed to do that? Because Eastman's another one. I think he is known as co-conspirator too. And I had my fun in the sun with Professor Eastman, who's now been disbarred and charged and RICO'd. So all things aside, they're going to have to stand too. In other words, this can, right now we're watching all the Joe Biden insanity take place that takes the cameras away from other parts of the political spectrum. But sometimes, someplace it comes back. It must. And Jenna Ellis is a rat. She is. She rolled. Anytime you roll, what were you told when you were a kid? I mean, at least I know where I grew up and you were told, don't rat. It was like, or my father would get mad if one of us went to rat out a sibling. Oh, that was the end of the world. Yeah. You would come in and say, da, 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 da. So then you were the rat, and the old man would line us up. And who broke the window? And one of the old man's great lies, one of the great lines was, you'd lie if the truth would do, and he'd have us for something minor, whatever it was. But which one of you did it, knowing full well as soon as you said he did, then you were rat. You were getting blamed. You were being called a rat. So yeah, Jenna Ellis is a rat, and in the lexicon of the street, that's just the truth. And so is the Kraken, and I suspect so is Chesbro's a rat. And let's see what happens if and when somebody like Rudolph Giuliani rats. All right, we got the Blake Olson report, and then we return. I'm Peter Boyles on 710 KNUS. Boys are on vacation. I'm Peter Boyles, and the guys will be back on Monday morning. I get to do the rest of the week, including Saturday morning, here on 710 KNUS Denver's talk station on a Tuesday, July, you're a woman, July 9th, 2024. It's been just a real pleasure. I've been a fan listening to the Jeff and Billy show, listening to the Olson report, and
Olson report.
I get to work with them this week, and it's just been
I get to work with you, Pete.
Oh man, but no, I get to hang with you. Hey, where did you grow up? I never asked you that.
I grew up in Longmont, Main Street,
Okay.
USA.
All right.
Dragging, there we go. I love it. Love it. Dragging hot rods on Main Street. I didn't do that, but Main Street in Longmont is a great place. Boulder County. Grew up there. My dad and mom, they were teachers. My dad's still alive. He's in Boulder, 90 years old
Wow.
and going strong. He is tough. And Yeah, grew up in Colorado listening to you. Went to college at Troy University, the home of the Trojans in Southeast Alabama.
Yeah.
And did time in Texas, worked in East Texas, North Texas, and Dallas before I came back to Denver. And you know what's funny, Pete? I was thinking about this last night. One of my first days at Channel 9, I got a job back at Channel 9, wanted to work there and everything. So late 90s, and that was like a dream come true. And I'm working there, man, and I turn the corner and I run right into you. And you were like, "Hey, man, how's it going?" And I was like, "Hey, how you doing, Pete?" Wow, Peter Boyles. So you were in the studio causing trouble with someone in there. You were doing a show at Channel 9, so I don't know if you remember that.
No,
I was about 70 pounds lighter, I think.
And I was about 30 years younger.
Yeah,
No,
exactly.
Because Bad Street USA, right? Longmont.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yep,
The Freebirds. The Freebirds. The Freebirds.
That's right.
Remember? The fabulous Freebirds from Bad Street USA.
Man, we Longmont is awesome because there used to be that Main Street was so cool. They had it's just like, you had the bakery and you had the restaurant and this and the toy store and the movie theater, the Trojan Theater downtown. I mean, all this stuff. It was pretty cool growing up there. And there was a place called Danny Pastry.
Ooh.
And everybody knows about that place. I wish it were still open, but I run across people who used to go there. It's one of those spots you love going to on a Saturday morning, drink coffee and the best homemade pastries in the world. But Longmont's an awesome place.
It's small town America. And
man, that's what it was.
Weren't you and I talking about that yesterday? And we're talking about small town radio or little.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we were talking about it.
It may be the last.
Yeah.
The last.
Right.
The last vestige of where it really does exist.
Man.
Guys are doing farm and ranch reports. Guys are doing high school football scores.
High school football.
Or broadcasting the games.
Yeah, absolutely. And still doing a good job. That's what I loved about Texas. It was small town USA, and the radio stations and TV stations were all like that. I would say that for me in the sports end of broadcasting, the best time I ever had was working in Tyler in East Texas.
Ooh.
And yeah, man, you talk about heat and humidity and in the sticks in the woods, but it was awesome because every Friday night in the fall was like, it was unbelievable. It was so cool.
I'm sure you have read Friday Night Lights.
Yep. Oh, and I kind of lived through it actually. Permian.
That's right.
I covered John Tyler, who was their East Texas rival, Permian in Odessa, Permian in West Texas, and they would stinking fly to East Texas to play this game. It was like they called it Cujo versus Mojo.
Yep.
But all that happened about a year or two. The movie and everything was based on the true story, of course, and it was on the true story that occurred about a year or two before I got to Tyler. So I kind of experienced that whole thing. But yeah, I love the movie. The movie was awesome.
The guy who did the book, and he became kind of a shirt tail friend, but when he went there and they gave him the green light thinking that he was going to write this glorious uplifting story of high school football, and it was a Permian, and as you point out, and he wrote the truth.
Right.
It was
anything but
It
was the truth. It was awesome because sports movies I don't like most sports movies because they ruin them. They're just unrealistic. But that one, man, he did a great job with it. He did the music in it is awesome.
Oh yeah. Well, the point of that book was that he was not invited back, and he said he probably couldn't step a foot in Texas.
That's partially true.
Oh yeah, we just went through an incident here a moment ago talking about RICO indictments, and it was as though that's the truth. If you don't like it, so what? But it's the truth, and now I bet it just triggered. Well, that didn't trigger until we started to talk about it. But I said that book, Friday Night Lights, And they made a television series out of it that it was, the movie.
I haven't seen it. I have not seen the TV series.
But favorite
Our
movie.
daughter loved it, but I didn't.
Maybe tomorrow when we're together tomorrow, we can do favorite movies, sports movies.
I love it. I
Wanna
love
do
it.
that. All
Yeah,
right,
let's do it.
All right, there it is again.
What the heck?
Showtime.
That thing is, it's showtime.
Showtime.
Here we go.
All right, there you
All
go.
right, Pete. All right, 65 and sunny in Denver, expecting highs in the upper 80s today and probably 90 degrees. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story.
That the majority of Americans are misguided and that they just need to trust Dr. O'Connor and take him at his word.
I have engagement with the president pretty regularly. What I see is a strong, resolute president who's always willing and able to work on behalf of the American people.
Well, that's nice of him. The White House has released a letter from President Biden's doctor after a contentious press briefing Monday over visits to the White House by Parkinson's disease specialist. Monday night, the White House put out a memo from presidential physician Kevin O'Connor, Dr. Kevin O'Connor, who said the visits from the neurological specialist were part of Biden's annual physicals and that all results have been made public. Former President Trump on Fox, he says Biden, if he does step aside, the VP is their number one.
I've actually come to believe that's what they're going to do. I think she's an ineffective person. She was in charge of the border. She's never been there. She didn't do a good job, and she hasn't done a job on a lot of things. So, but it would seem to me that from a political standpoint, that's who they're going with. They're not even talking about alternatives. And it seems that if he gets out for whatever reason, and I don't think he wants to get out.
And then there's Anna Navarro from The View. She's been introduced to actual journalism.
I'm worried and I'm pissed. Frankly, I'm livid. Because for the last 8 days, it feels to me, I have seen nothing but breathless reporting. It almost feels like media malpractice of them trying to score the winning goal against Biden. Who can have the gotcha moment? They've been splicing, dicing, cubing everything he says, putting on a microscopic slide, and then looking at it under all sorts of magnifying glasses.
How dare they get down to the bottom of it? Just don't you know your job? Wow, that is amazing. Now they're getting real questions and The View doesn't like it. Biden will host a high-stakes NATO summit in D.C. this week to mark the 75th anniversary of the alliance. National Security Council spokesman John Kirby said NATO is stronger due to Biden's leadership. Burl has weakened into a tropical depression in Texas, but has left millions without power and at least 8 people dead in South Texas. A United flight out of L.A. Monday lost a landing gear tire as it took off. The Boeing 757 continued on to Denver, where it managed to land at DIA without incident. The FAA is investigating. A heated Aurora City Council meeting last night as supporters of 37-year-old Kylan Lewis showed up. Aurora police were serving an active warrant in May for Lewis for an alleged attempted homicide. APD said he refused commands and one hand disappeared from view, and that's when he was shot and killed. Later, it was found that he was reaching for his cell phone. The family says they want justice, and the officer is on administrative leave. He's back! Denver Mayor Mike Johnston is back and announced a proposal to increase the city sales tax to over 9% in order to raise $100 million a year to go toward affordable housing. Homeless and illegal immigrants will benefit, I'm sure, in Denver as hotels are being renovated and apartments being built all over the city to increase the influx of illegal immigrants.
Free housing, free classes.
The Association for the People from Venezuela.
That is from @This is John Williams on YouTube. @This is John Williams on YouTube. Just great work. You need to check it out if you can. Denver going to hell at This Is John Williams just investigates. It goes through the whole thing, and it is sickening. Reds beat the Rockies 6-0. First pitch today, 5:10 in Cincinnati, 61 in Castle Pines, 63 in Lakewood, 65 in Denver. Pete continues all weekend for Jeff and Billy. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Your 710 5-day forecast, sunny, dry, near 90 today, getting hotter. Temperatures in the low 90s on Wednesday. Slight chance of an isolated thunderstorm. Upper 90s Thursday. Upper 90s and lower 100s. Friday through Sunday with only isolated thunderstorms. Nights will be 50s and 60s. Weather sponsored by Branch Planning. Some income annuities are paying 25 to 45% more than last year. Get a free retirement review by calling Branch Planning today at 720-651-9800. Find out more at branchplanning.com. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Good morning, everyone. On a very good Tuesday, it is July the 9th, 2024. Good old 710 KNUS. Good to be back in the saddle. And you heard the weather. We'll do it again. 90 the high, 92 on Wednesday, and 96 on Thursday morning. Let me punch this button. Yesterday, we spent the morning jammed the lines talking about the media, newspapers, television, and, of course, radio. This guy and I wasn't sure that he was... I'm back, but Tommy Muller, who we go back together, working together, and then working with other people together and knowing people together for about 100 years. And, and you go for the winter, you're like the snowbird, you go away and then you come back. Mm-hmm. Now, first of all, I saw him in the hallway, so come do the radio show.
Yeah.
You look great.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate that.
You and I and Joe Biden.
Yeah. Well, I think you and I are doing a little better.
But how tough can that be? Do a real quick bio. This guy has done everything there is. He's a true radio guy. How many things have you done in this business, and when did you get in?
Oh, I got in 1962, if I remember right.
Wow.
When I was in college, student radio station at Michigan State. And then I ended up downtown at the number one station downtown, a rocker. But a major part of my career was at KIST in Santa Barbara, all disc jockey work, rock and roll.
Sure.
And then advertising sales. I wanted to get into management. So the path, as
That's
you
the
know,
way in. That's right.
The way in is advertising sales. Yeah. So I thought if I'd get being on the air out of my system, it doesn't happen.
No, it doesn't happen.
I would go into management, and I was in advertising sales. Didn't really enjoy it, but it was a stepping stone. Became a manager of a Salem station, actually, in Santa Barbara, Salem used that as a stepping stone for buying all of the stations they've bought around the country. But here I am back on the air because that has been my heart. So I've done everything from news director here, disc jockey, rock and roll disc jockey.
Co-hosting with the morning show with me.
Co-hosting with you in the morning. And by the way, speaking of that,
yes,
they got a new comfy chair here.
All kinds of stuff. These screens. What is this?
I mean, the
look what happens when we leave.
Oh, I know. So it's been, and here we still are.
Now, when the question came up yesterday about radio, the past and the future, and whatever it is we're in the present, what do you say to that about what you've lived and what you're watching?
Oh man. There's so many avenues you can talk about. What we lived in a great time in radio.
Man,
we really did. And of course, I was in top 40 radio. You were
country
and then talk.
Oh yeah.
I came along late in talk with you, but I guess at our age, we're both octogenarians.
Yes, we are. I thought so.
And at our age, it's really good to say, well, back in my day. But you know what? Back in my day, the media and radio was fantastic.
And that's what we were talking about yesterday, was how it meant, not that it doesn't, but it really meant something. And the networks meant things, and they're gone. And, everything that newspapers know, tragically, newspapers are gone as well.
Yeah.
And we would, go ahead, I'm sorry.
And you had the back end, you just mentioned this. Back when I was at KIST, KIST cumed in the 90s.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And that's a cumulative audience. It wasn't average quarter hour, but it cumed.
Explain that to people.
The ratings measure quarter hours, averages, and where you have a share of everybody listening at that time, but you also have a cumulative.
You just went in the atmosphere. Here's how I explain it. Not that I can do it any better.
All right.
I know maybe Kelly can jump in. We're having a party.
Mm-hmm.
And every 15 minutes, we stop the music and we count how many people are in the room.
Right.
And then some people leave and more people come in.
Yeah.
We go 15 more minutes. We stop the party.
Mm-hmm.
We count how many people are in the room
in that time.
And then we start the party again. Right. And some people leave and some people come in.
Yeah.
And we stop again. So 4 times an hour, we stop the party and count how many people were at the party, how many leave, how many come, and then better yet, who they are.
Yeah, right.
Well, how old are they? What's their skin color?
Yeah.
All of those things. And we divide that up, and that becomes demographics, and that becomes a sales tool, and that becomes
average quarter hour.
That's exactly what it was. And it used to be done. Now it's done electronically, but it used to be done in such a way that people got in trouble.
And then, speaking of getting in trouble, when the party was over at 4 a.m., if you could remember, you would be able to tell how many people it cumes out to have accumulated in that party.
That's right. And how many people in total came and danced and ate food or whatever they did. But
so we were dancing in Santa Barbara, cuming out at about 90%.
That's strong.
Over the course of a week.
That's so strong.
Oh, and I mean, that was.
You get Hal Moore telling stories about Kim, and you get Berg and I at KOA. We had some big numbers.
Sure,
we had big numbers at night at KHOW, but those guys at Kim, it was the same time frame you're talking about. Well, they were killing it.
I know.
I mean, and I think, just Charlie Martin morning shows had those enormous numbers, and that's.
And you guys did real well.
We did. Yeah, me and the old man did. Yeah, and we're talking about him, about how talking about the late great Bob Lee, the rock and rebel.
The rock and rebel.
I think about him. I think about him more all the time than I have a picture on the wall of he and I.
Is that right?
And we had a billboard. And he and I were on cows, sitting on cows like they were horses. Take a picture of it.
I can see it.
And it said, on the move, MOOVE, 1610 KLAK.
Yeah.
And there was me and the old man, and we were out in some field somewhere, and they hired a photographer and the late Bob Prangley, and we were like, I said, getting on a cow? Come on, kid. Well, and he was the KOA morning host. He did it. One of those guys.
Well, he and I go back to Michigan, of course.
I know.
He grew up in Detroit. And I was down the road because I was in college, and I was at WILS at Michigan State in Lansing.
Yeah.
It was a number one. It was a rocker in Lansing. He was at JBK in Detroit.
Big station.
Big name.
Yeah, big station.
Big name, big station. And Robert E. Lee is his real given name.
It's his real name, absolutely.
It's his real name. And he was known as the Rock and Rebel.
He was the Rock and Rebel.
And then, of course, I met him here as Bob Lee.
Yep.
And when he told me that he was the Rock and Rebel, I said, "You were the Rock and Rebel?
Was the Rock and Rebel?
Give me your autograph."
Oh, you met guys. Oh, yeah. And then through him, because he knew everybody.
Yeah.
We met Wolfman Jack. We met, we met.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We met, and I went like, that's really that guy.
And his early years, of course, was
an actor.
Actor
Was a
on
ra-
radio.
radio
A radio
actor. Radio
actor
actor.
on the Lone Ranger, and where
He,
you know,
one of the most talented and
I agree.
lesser known characters,
Yeah.
and that, but he had stories that were just. I mean, he grew up, and well, he grew up. Stevie Wonder used to, you know, and the Tops and the Temptations, and he knew those guys from Hitsville.
Yeah,
it wasn't like, oh yeah, I know Berry Gordy.
Yeah.
He knew Berry Gordy. He had great Berry Gordy stories, and those guys, they're, I don't know, it's gone.
Yeah,
but
you know, those are great memories. They really are. And there is a blessing to span the amount of time that you and I have spanned staying in this business.
Lucky guy.
And we're
because of him.
Yeah.
I mean, he put his armor on me and brought me in, and you know, and the same thing was true with AB for talk, and you know, somebody saw something in you and said, "We'll give this kid a shot."
Right.
And but it was the old man, and there he was.
But it's great seeing you today.
Too.
It really
it's so
is.
fun to be here. I mean, it's
Yeah.
getting up still, you know, like, wait a minute, I forgot about this part of it.
You know, come to San Diego in the winter, be with me.
You know what? That's if it wasn't for skiing, that would make a great run.
That's true.
You guys, you and Donna go.
We go 6 months out of the year there,
Look at
6
this.
months here,
Look at this.
and and it's great.
You can still work out of there too.
Can still work in the RV.
Come on.
Got a little studio about this size.
This is again how much time we got to take a pause here. We had when Bob and I, and we had it was a Revco, which I don't know what kind of a RV that was, and it was an early RV, and it had a radio studio in it, and they called it the Broadcast Entertainment Vehicle. And we could take it to remotes.
Well, we used to do remotes in RVs.
Exactly.
Like that. Yeah, that's
exactly.
right.
Well, guess who drove? That's right. He was there. And I've often thought about this. There's a like Desperados Waiting for a Train is perhaps one of the most emotional songs of ever. And he's singing. Actually, apparently, they're singing about somebody's grandmother's boyfriend. It was the guy who's the old man in the song. And that great line, he said, he taught me how to drive when he was too drunk to. And so, you know, here you drive, you know, and I would drive it. And I wonder how we got it home half the time, but we would go on remotes.
Yeah.
Plug in.
We do the county fair from the remotes. We do remote broadcasts from a car dealership.
Always did them every Saturday.
Yeah,
they were money in the bank.
I know.
Oh,
that's right.
First one and I can't tell. Maybe it's too late, but I can't tell you the name of the dealer. But we had this. It wasn't Blanky. It was some other clown that had a circus for kids. He had a carnival that he would make all these little Ferris wheels and stuff and roller coasters. And it was at a big, well-known car dealer whose name will go unmentioned. And we had Floyd Little with us. And me and the old man and Floyd Little, and we went to this carnival. So my daughter's a little girl and my son wasn't even born yet. And I knew the shape that the clown was in. I said, you're not riding a ride here. You're thinking how it's wrenched together, you know, but we had a good time.
Now that the truth is you are a month and a half younger than I am.
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
And, but we're of
in the
that
time.
age.
We're there.
Do you ever feel compelled to stand out in the outside and say, get off of my lawn, or?
Not yet.
Me neither.
I mean, it's like the thing that really makes me mad now is other drivers. But motorcycles, and my motorcycle's outside, but they split in the cars. Oh boy, that gets to me.
Yeah, I agree.
It is so good to see you.
Great seeing you.
I'll see you the rest of this week. And
you bet.
How long are you guys in town? Till the first snowfly.
No, we have reservations in San Diego November 1st.
There you go.
If it starts snowing before then,
we're gone.
We'll we'll hang out in Phoenix on the way to San Diego.
There used to be a guy that sold on the air in Pittsburgh when I'm a kid, looking back, who their gimmick line was, and you don't have to pay a single penny until the snow flies. And as soon as the snow flew, you don't have to pay a single penny till the first robin spring, and like they had the roll and them, and I didn't know it. I'm watching this stuff. And I'll look back on it and think, well, yeah, sure. But what were they doing? They were selling.
Yeah, right.
They were selling.
That's right.
I love you. Thank you. It's
Love
good
you
to
too.
see you, Tommy.
Thanks.
All right. Boston, we got to take a turn and we'll come back. I want to read. I got this amazing after that conversation. I will read this to you. Stay here, 710 KNUS.
At this hour in the UK, I'm John Beaver, and here are the top stories we're following. More than 2 million customers in Texas remain without power after Hurricane Beryl slammed into the Gulf Coast on Monday. The storm brought powerful winds, torrential rains and flooding, leaving at least 3 people dead. Tony Waterman has more from Austin.
Restoring power is the top priority right now. The heat index in the greater Houston area is expected to hit 105 degrees Fahrenheit or 40 degrees Celsius on Tuesday and Wednesday, posing a fresh danger for those who just escaped the worst of this hurricane. Heat kills more than twice as many people in the U.S. every year than hurricanes and tornadoes combined. This storm is now tracking north, bringing with it more rain and storms in the coming days. In Austin, Tony Waterman, Salem News Channel.
A day of mourning is being observed in Ukraine after at least 41 people were killed and more than 160 injured in missile strikes across the country. 2 people died when the children's hospital in Kyiv was hit on Monday during the most bloody day in Ukraine for months. The Russian attacks have been condemned by the international community. President Biden called them a horrific reminder of Russia's brutality. And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm John Beaver in the UK on Salem News Channel.
Peter Boyles for Jeff and Bill. Good morning, everyone. It's a Tuesday, the 9th of July, 2024. And it's going to be a hot one. 90, 92, and 96, and then boom, 100 degrees. For the merry second or third time this morning, we have open lines, 303-696-1971. I feel compelled to read this after kind of a dust-up segment of the show. Peter, you are, and there should be an A there, a propagandist. Not a truth teller, not a historian, because you read it in liberal rags, because MSNBC and CNN say it. This does not make it true. The opposite of legacy media and CIA narrative is true. The 2020 election was stolen. January 6th was a false flag operation. The FBI and the CIA are corrupt Stasi police. You have to be a moron not to know these things. All of Trump's indictments are political prosecutions brought by Biden and his corrupt DOJ. Trump is a victim, not an unindicted co-conspirator. The term, and again, I got to move this down a little bit. The term is from the same commies that screamed Puerto Rico. Okay. Rico. I see. Rico, not Puerto Rico. They also have spun Russia. I get it. Golden showers, and claimed that Biden did not have dementia. Don't believe your lying eyes, Peter. These are the same liars that say we have free and fair elections, except when their guy loses. Jenna Ellis isn't a rat. She is a lying, betraying snake that will say anything to save her own hide. How did the German people come to want Jews to be exterminated? We are living through it. Tell the lie, make it a big repeated lie. Peter, when does the bell toll for thee? I wonder. All right, to the phones we go. We go to Don. Don, you're on the radio show. It's Tuesday. Good morning.
Uncle Pete, what's going on?
Me, man. Apparently. Yeah.
It's like to hear you during the week.
Yeah, I'm hip.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about, this is something I've been kind of mulling around in my head for a while. One was that I took your advice and I did watch the debate between DJT and Drool and Joe.
Oh, cool.
And within the first 30 seconds, I said to myself, this guy is struggling.
Yeah.
And it just got worse from there. And then I saw the George Step on All of Us interview, and God,
they cut that.
You know,
Don. I mean, I swear that not that I know it, but so I shouldn't say that. But an interview is not 22 minutes long or 23 minutes. They usually they're half an hour, they're an hour, they're what they cut that short. I really firmly believe it.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. He didn't exactly cover himself with glory on that. If that was supposed to allay everybody's fears, I think it failed miserably.
Again, you're absolutely right. Now this is the big week. I mean, the Dems are meeting as we speak. Joe's future hangs in the balance.
Well, let me ask you this, because I think if they get rid of Joe, it still doesn't solve their problem. They still got, I call her the dimwit, still there as the number two. So if they get rid of Joe, they're still stuck with Kamala.
That's right.
So I have a considerable amount of respect for Barack Obama. I don't particularly care for his politics, but as I think as a politician, he's pretty much up there. But I think that's because I noticed there's a really good Wall Street Journal article off of Drudge that points out that how they've been hiding Joe out here for about the last few years.
Yeah.
And I really think that, and Barack Obama is one of the people who he's still kind of supporting Joe, but.
Well, you got two things to have to deal with. One is the now. And I can't see Kamala running. I just can't. They have to, and I use this term, they have to park her somewhere. And I think that place probably will be, again, guessing, the head of an Ivy League school somewhere. They'll give her some prestigious, liberal gig, the head of the Harvard or, pick one. But then and somebody asked, what would you do? I would go outside the party. There's nobody on looking down a Democrats bench that you can say, hey, put in Gavin Newsom or put in. What they need to do is go and find their Trump. Trump never held office before. Do whatever you want to do with Trump, but Trump never was, although he funded a lot of politicians, a lot of people's runs for office, but he never himself ran. And so they got to find somebody. They got to do it. They got to do it in a hell of a hurry, Donnie. They got to do it quick.
Yeah, well, I thought it would be this week, but I think this is going to get really ugly before it gets better.
Oh, you think that, he's going to barricade himself in there and say, but I mean, I have visions. It's going to get a lot worse. You're right again. It's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. And
yeah, and you notice how quiet DJT has been. I mean, that's just really smart.
But again, there's that line historically: when your enemy is destroying himself, do not try to help.
Yeah, just grab popcorn and smile.
And it's also taking the cameras off of Trump.
Yeah,
and we can have that quasi ridiculous argument, but right now, after that debate, if you want to, I mean, it was like senior abuse or something. What did Moore call it?
Moore.
Yeah, he called it elder abuse. But so Trump now just takes a bow, lays out. I would.
I noticed no one's talked about the next debate either.
There ain't going to be one.
Yeah, when is the Democratic convention? It's in August, isn't it?
Yeah, it's coming.
Yeah, it's not too long ago. They got to figure this out quick. But
you
can right. They don't have a bench.
Well, you can bet the power brokers and the fat cats and the boys, they have their plan in place as we speak. It's just implementing it, trying to talk. I guess you got to try and talk Jill. Did you see Jill in that cut that was played this morning where she was talking about how she's ready? Whoo! Did you see that? She's ready.
No,
you're ready. Yeah, Edith Wilson. Come. All right. I'm being told one more call. Thanks, Donnie. Love you, man. All right, one more, and it's Marty. Hey, Marty, you're on a radio show. Woo! Was Marty gone? Okay. So you want to pause here? Okay. 303-696-1971. We turn and burn. 710 KNUS. Morning, everybody. Peter Boyles in for Jeff and Bill. They'll be here next Monday. Tuesday weather, 90, high 92 again on Wednesday. Back at you tomorrow. Now we go to Marty. I think it's Marty on line one. You waited. Good morning, sir. You're on the show.
Hey, Peter. Good to speak with you. The only bummer about speaking to you on a Tuesday morning, I got to go back to work after the call, so that's the bum. But Saturdays, it's all good, so it's good to hear you either way. Now, here's what I believe, and this is what I think all listeners and voters, Americans need to understand is I'm convinced this is going to be record turnout for 2024 election. I don't know if you feel, but if you saw the 2020, we saw 81 million to 75 million. That's 156 million Americans. That means we were getting homeless votes. There's no doubt about that. But you and I, we disagree on the validity, the authenticity of mail-in voting.
Well,
but here's the deal.
But let me back this out, because when this all started low many years ago, it was these machines. It was it was everything and anything that was said by people who are now rolling over and making deals to try and save their rear ends.
That's cowardice.
No, it's not cowardice. They realized, I think they came to terms with, like Sammy Gravano, they're not going to go down for this guy. And especially, no, I'm serious. I mean, look, they were all part and parcel. Look at the list of people. And so it started out, I mean, those first couple of days, it was Venezuela, it was in Europe, and it was done by the lead rollover. What do you do with somebody like the Kraken? What do you do with her?
So we're in a very different, I guess, opinion of that. They changed same day voting. Well, hold on a second.
Well, come back to please deal with my question.
What do you mean the people that reneged on their belief that it was stolen? What do we do with those people? What are you asking there?
Well, that's part of it. The people who told you and talk shows and everybody, oh, here's the truth. And she said, I was lying.
So she's not the evidence, though. She's not the story.
She was
Did you
used.
see the Maricopa County? They can't verify signatures. But let's not go there, because see, sounds, Polly. It sounds. No, but here's why I say it's a silly conversation, because to suggest that we got record turnout for 2020, and we sure did. It was 70% mail-in, Peter. We changed rules the week of the election. Don't need to verify. Just get us that ballot. And let's not have a breakdown because you and I disagree with that. Okay?
Show me again. Look, did you vote by ballot? I mean, excuse me, by mail-in ballot?
Voted. I took my fat butt right in there on election day, and I'll say, give me Donald Trump. That's what I did, because I believe in the system that way. I don't think that we want to be.
You think that my ballot was counted in Denver County? I've been mailing ballots in for, I don't know, for quite a while. Do you think they're counted and legitimately counted?
I'm not so worried about your ballot, Peter. I'm worried about all the other ballots that went out there unsolicited to people that we don't know. But there's two great questions.
Right.
There's two great questions, because we get sort of a redemption in 2024. Because my question for you, Peter, and that's why it's a beautiful setup, is Joe Biden got 81 million votes. If Joe Biden is to remain the candidate or they're able to come up with a replacement, will you accept the fact if Democrats set a new record in popular vote, maybe goes to 83, 85. Are you okay accepting that now every Democrat that they throw up there is a record-setting better than the last? Because that's what you have to believe.
Well, until you do what's not been able to be done, is walk into a courtroom and show firm, hard legal evidence to me. And let me go back to my close personal friend, John Eastman, who has been now indicted and lost his law license. They told lies, Marty. They told lies. Now, do you believe what Eastman said is true, since now he's lost his law license and he's been indicted? Do you believe Giuliani was telling the truth since he destroyed those people's lives? Do you believe that the people who Dinesh D'Souza wrecked, do you believe that Dinesh D'Souza was telling the truth? Or is because now this company I work for had to pay significant money back to the man who he targeted. Now, you believe that that's all? Do you believe that that's real, or do you believe that's made up? Because the other stuff's made up.
I believe that the judicial system, even our Supreme Court, what did they say to the state of Texas?
You got to weigh out.
Well, no, think of it. No. It's not a way out. Think about it. The Supreme Court said the state of Texas did not have standing when it came to the fraud of the 2020
What do
election.
you
That's
think?
what the Supreme Court
Look,
said.
I just changed horses on me in the middle of the stream again. Come back.
No.
What? Yeah, most certainly did. What do you think of Rudolph Giuliani's behavior? And he's Donald Trump's attorney. What do you think of John Eastman's behavior? What do you think of Dinesh D'Souza? What do you think of Mike Lindell? What do you think of these? Were Jenna Ellis?
I support each one of them. I support each one of them. Peter, you're willing to blindly accept 81 million for this?
I am willing.
Do it again?
Marty, I am willing to accept legal facts and figures, not something that somebody made up and now they're paying off because of what they said. Don't you understand that the difference between what happened and what was said and what the truth is? Now, Joe Biden is not going to be there. You know it. I know it. And the only person who probably doesn't know it is Joe. But what I'm saying to you, things are going, this is going to be between now and November. Maybe we can agree on this. Hold on to your hat because it's going to get good.
100%.
It's going to get good.
Peter, I just asked you this. Do you think we have record-setting turnout this year, or are people so turned
You
off?
know, but you're asking me to predict, and predictions are always the wrong things to do. Why would
What's in your gut?
My
What's
gut,
in your heart?
yeah,
What's in your
my gut is it's so heated right now. Yes, but but again, we know this that elections and/or history takes time out. It goes to the sidelines, and you get some strange things. I'm not saying this will be, because this is going to be shoulders up, hands up, put your helmet on, keep it off safe. Here we go. But it's going to be this week with Joe. I mean, I love your phone calls, by the way. And by the way, just as an aside, Peter has gone crazy. He believes what he's saying this morning. I don't know, but I thought I'd pass that on to you. But you know, one of the things that Lady Justice does is wear a blindfold, and she holds a scale, and the evidence goes into the scales, and belief is not evidence. And my fun moment with John Eastman, when he said he had signed affidavits, and I said, I can sign you an affidavit right now that I saw Bigfoot. And then I was called a name and he hung up. Do we lose him? I guess so. We have time. We have enough time. We're done. Okay, we have 1 minute. All right, everybody. Great show. I guess it must be a change of pace to have someone say something different, but think about who Jenna Ellis is. Think about who the Kraken is. Watch these people. They're rolling over, just like they did in a RICO trial for John Gotti. They're making deals. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't predict an outcome, but sometimes I feel like the people that are outside the federal courthouses jumping up and down on the federal cop cars when they found John Gotti guilty. John Gotti he's a wonderful man. He was John Gotti, you know, and Sammy DeGravano wasn't any better. And we'll leave you with this. Jenna Ellis is a rat. Ratted him out. It's the truth. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. See what happens between now and then. You know that they're in the office right now with Joe Biden. Go, now, Joe, look at me. That's what they're saying. You got to pull the pin. All right, everybody. Thanks, Kelly Michaels. And we have 1 more hour? That's right. I think we're leaving now. Folks on the phones, I wish I hadn't lost that guy. Guys on the phone, stay there. I got another hour of this. Are you kidding me? I was timing myself out. 710 KNUS, stay right here. The Blake Olson Report and myself will come back. And me and Joe Biden, one more hour. Since I only do fill-in work on Monday through Friday, I was ending the show a little bit early, but Kelly Michaels, the Iron Fist, boom, no. Good morning, everyone. It's a Tuesday, July the 9th. We have another hour straight ahead of open lines. Good old 710 KNUS. And what are you laughing at?
I've only done that 100 times in the past 2 months.
You thought the show was over. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I do it. I do it all the time.
Oh, and it's like, and I'm, in that good conversation with that guy, and I'm thinking, okay, what should I then? And then I go, okay, we'll see you tomorrow. And Kelly go, no, you don't.
No,
no,
stay here.
Me and Joe
one
Biden.
More,
yeah,
one more good one.
Yeah, me and Joe. This, of course, the morning show on ladies and gentlemen, on 710 KNUS.
1,000 times sharper than Joe Biden.
Anyhow,
8 billion times sharper than him.
Jeff and Billy are off until next Monday, and I got the nod. And of course, the two and only Blake Olson and the Olson Report. I don't know. I opened up a can of worms, which I really didn't expect to. Here it is. I'll give you an idea of what's going on.
You've never done that
No,
before.
and actually I won't. I won't.
Come on.
No. And Donald Trump was running against a corpse, and he's only ahead by 6 points. See what you've done to me?
The wall is going to be on fire here.
That's right. The wall of hate.
The wall of hate.
I was going to ask you, you got because we talked about this earlier, on the overs and unders, how much longer does Joe Biden last? Seriously.
Okay, once again, so yeah, I said 8 more days. So whatever that is, what is it, Tuesday? So I said next Wednesday, but now I feel like something's going to happen Friday. That's when people get fired. I always get fired on Friday,
sure.
right?
Oh yeah, of course. And radio.
So you have have the weekend to consider your future.
No, they kept and that won't be for Biden, but it's called the slow news day.
Yes,
Saturday.
Absolutely.
So if you're going to do something, you got to make a release of some bad news, or you do something choppy.
Yes.
Do it on Friday.
I'm thinking Friday. How about you?
This meeting that's going on right now, the Dems are having a closed door meeting, and it's on Joe Biden.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have, you got to have some support. He doesn't have it. He seems like he's got Dr. Jill and him, and I'm sure Hunter's in her stay, Dad, stay. And then what?
Right.
Remember the line from Spike Lee, do the right thing.
Yep.
Well, is there a right? You think what the right thing is for him to leave, but will he do the right thing?
Yeah, I don't think he will.
You and I.
I mean, does he love the country more than he does his family and Hunter and all the crap that's going on with that?
Yeah, goes back
situation.
To Nixon.
I think he cares about his family. I don't think he cares about the country right now.
But remember, this country's being ripped apart. And Nixon won't quit. And that's what I'm saying about these guys. The country is literally, figuratively being torn apart.
Yeah.
Nixon apparently drinks and stays where he stays, and they will not get him to go. And now what?
I don't know who could convince him or who would convince him in that room.
Dr. Jill.
Dr. Jill's the only one. Yeah. Who's going to convince Dr. Jill? Because she's having too much. She's having too much fun.
You ever heard the stories about how Dr. Jill and Joe met and everything? Boy, that's
yeah. Actually, I heard you tell those stories.
That's not pretty. You get Dr. Jill's former mister, who is a very pro-Trump Republican. I've seen him talk or listened to him talk. Read some of his opinions. It's interesting. It's interesting.
That's a good story.
All right, sir. You want to do something?
Delve into that in the 9 o'clock hour.
All right. Tomorrow when I'm gone.
There you go.
All right.
All right,
Do
70 and sunny in Denver. Thanks, Pete. Expecting highs in the upper 80s today and maybe 90. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story.
Free housing, free classes.
The Association for the people from Venezuela.
Ah, yes, free housing, food. Come on up to Denver, wherever you may be. Denver Mayor Mike Johnston announced a proposal to increase the city's sales tax to over 9% in order to raise $100 million a year to go toward affordable housing. Homeless and illegal immigrants will benefit, and so will property owners of motels and hotels, as at John Williams, or I'm John Williams, details in his video on YouTube. Denver has become hell.
I could rent it to the state for not $100 a night, $150 a night, maybe $250, maybe $300, maybe $400 a night, maybe more, and fill 100% of the units every single day of the month. Then take that money and renovate the entire property for basically, nothing, and basically double or triple the value of the asset.
And it'll get worse. At This Is John Williams on YouTube. Great work. And here's former President Trump.
Illegal migrants that are pouring into our countries, many of them are staying in luxury hotels all over our country. They're being shipped up, as we say now, every state is a border state, whether it's Idaho or Iowa or Ohio. It doesn't make any difference. They're all border because they're pouring through. And if you look at Venezuela, their crime is down 72%. Their crime, think of it, down 72, and ours is up. And we're going to have a new form of crime because these people are just getting comfortable. They're just getting settled in.
Trump on Fox last night, and as Pete mentioned, Democrats huddling up right now as we speak as the White House releasing a letter from President Biden's doctor on Monday after a heated press briefing over visits to the White House by a Parkinson's disease specialist. Monday night, the White House put out a memo from presidential physician Dr. Kevin O'Connor, who said the visits from the specialist were part of Biden's annual physicals and all results have been made public. Now there's Whoopi doesn't understand some things. She wanted Trump off the ballot, even though she's not a Republican, and it didn't happen. Aren't we talking about the same thing here with Stumbling Joe?
Find somebody else. But when we tried to do that with DT, this is my new way of just describing him. When we said, listen, he shouldn't be on the ballot. Everybody said, no. The people chose him. We can't take him off the ballot. Well, I don't understand why anybody thinks it's going to be any easier to take Biden off the ballot.
Whoopi evidently not the biggest fan of We the People. The real story is Iran, China, Russia, all terrorists, and everyone around the world knows who our commander-in-chief is.
And I'll tell you what, if we're not careful, we're going to be right in the middle of World War III, and that will be a war like nobody's seen before because of the weaponry. The weaponry is a whole lot different than two army tanks going up against each other. This is a whole different world, and we don't have somebody that can properly represent us. There's no question about that.
Beryl has weakened into a tropical depression in Texas and Louisiana, but has left millions without power and at least 7 people dead in South Texas and 1 in Louisiana. A United flight out of LA Monday lost a landing gear tire as it took off. The Boeing 757 continued on to Denver, where it managed to land at DIA without incident. The FAA is investigating. A heated Aurora City Council meeting last night as supporters of 37-year-old Kylan Lewis showed up. Aurora police were serving an active warrant in May for Lewis for an alleged attempted homicide. APD said he refused commands and one hand disappeared from view, and that's when he was shot and killed. Later found that he was reaching for his phone. The family says they want justice, and the officer is on administrative leave. The Reds beat the Rockies 6-0. First pitch today in Cincinnati at 5:10. It's 67 in Aurora, 66 in Lafayette, and 70 in Denver. And finally, from the great Mark Anderson, a few years back, New York outlawed big gulps. Doing the same thing in Minneapolis now. Yep, they're only allowing to serve mini sodas. All right, Peter continues all week. Thanks a lot, Mark.
That's horrible.
That is horrible, but it's Mark. It's Mark Anderson. In for Jeff and Bill, here's Pete. Blake Olson, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Your 710 5-day forecast, sunny, dry, near 90 today, getting hotter. Temperatures in the low 90s on Wednesday. Slight chance of an isolated thunderstorm. Upper 90s Thursday. Upper 90s and lower 100s. Friday through Sunday with only isolated thunderstorms. Nights will be 50s and 60s. Weather sponsored by Branch Planning. Some income annuities are paying 25 to 45% more than last year. Get a free retirement review by calling Branch Planning today at 720-651-9800. Find out more at branchplanning.com. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Better believe it. Final hour. Do that one right, Peter. Tuesday, 9 July 2024. Good old 710 KNUS. I'm in for the fellas. They're back a week from yesterday, and I get to do all this week plus Saturday morning. 710 KNUS, Denver's talk station. It's been a great day and a half of open lines, and then boom, it goes sideways. Perhaps we could do this, but I would doubt it. What we do know is to say that something happened, and I'm trying to not, well, I'll say this. To say an election was stolen doesn't make it so. Charges require allegations, and then they require proof. I haven't seen it. What I have seen is Fox News paying off, and the list goes down of people who are paying, including the company that I work for paid. And that's only the beginning. So let's not do this to each other. It's like banging your head against a wall. It feels so good when you quit. There is nothing to be gained by this. What happened and how this got triggered, we're talking about Richard Nixon being called the unindicted co-conspirator. So was Donald Trump and the RICO in Atlanta. That's all it took. So if it's that intense, let it be. We can do it. But I prefer other things. This is Steve. Steve, you're on a radio show. It is a Tuesday. Good morning. Thank you.
This is the Calvary. So I'm going to stay away from the politics a little bit. This guy that wrote Friday Night Lights, yes. I just saw where Sports Illustrated named it the best football book ever written.
And he's not allowed back into Texas.
But what I was going to ask is if Blake met him, because reading his biography, he's kind of a package there.
I met him.
A lot of writers.
I met him. I met him when he was on a book tour, and and I'd read the book, and it's brilliant. I mean, it's an insight on how big time high school football works. And and including, if you remember, the African American kid, the running back, and I mean, they literally would. And then when the kid would get hurt, it was like, okay, see you later. And it was all about winning and how the town would. And it's a city actually would react to Friday Night Lights. And they gave him, according to what he told me, and I read the book. Book's really a special book. They had given him carte blanche. They said, here, see anything you want to see, write whatever you want to write, go wherever you want to go. And he did. And he wrote what he saw. And having said that, that was Friday Night Lights.
On the election, not the past election, but on this one coming forward, the country is split, and whoever the Democrats pick, MAGA has to know that the opposition to Trump is very bitter. There is a broad stripe of America that, anybody but Trump.
But one of the reasons, or one of the things that Trump really did shine in that debate, and it was we spent time talking about it, what Donald Trump would show up. And the real question should have been which Joe Biden was going to show up. And so I thought Trump played that debate. It was masterful. When Biden went after him with, the morals of an alley cat and all those, he was trying to draw him out. He was trying to make him mad. Apparently somebody said to him, if you say these kinds of things, he'll lose his cool. And I got to tell you something, Steve, he did not. He shrugged it off. He rolled with it. He shrugged it off.
His campaign is much better, much more disciplined than before. But here's the final point.
Or I was going to say, let me put an addendum on that. Or he's listening.
Yeah. But here's the thing. Aside from getting elected, on one hand, Biden could leave. He could say, for the good of the country, at least in the Democratic Party, he would be revered, good service, 50 years, blah, blah, blah. Upbeat note, unselfish. And my gosh, on the other end is colossal defeat in the election. Why? But if you have those two choices, why not go out on the high road? And then you go out on the high road.
No, I agree.
You got all these opportunities later on.
Yep.
Speech here, president here. You can do all these great things. So I would think his family would want him to go out on a high note as opposed to being responsible for Trump getting back in.
It's, again, very well said. But I think, and again, the only model that we actually know, and that's the Nixon up to and after post Nixon's resignation. And I don't know that similar things are taking place inside the White House as they did inside of the Nixon White House. But remember, it took months to get to Nixon. The Watergate hearings, the investigation, the New York Times, the Washington Post. I mean, it took a while to get to Nixon. And this has happened very quickly in terms of political life. It happened very, very quickly. And
the same thing would need to happen, I think. You would have to have a march, by Minority Leader Jeffries, Schumer, Pelosi,
sure.
Four of the main leaders that he respects, and they would have to make the march. Other than that, I can't, because the newspapers aren't going to get him out.
No, but the pressure on Nixon, we'll come back to Nixon, was when eventually the Republican stalwarts came to terms with it, and they realized that what the charges were being made against Nixon were in fact true. That although he did not know they were going to do what they did, he certainly knew the next day. And he began what the crimes against Nixon were in the cover-up. And a lot of Nixon historians contend, and I think it's probably true, that had the next morning, when Nixon is told about the break-in, but these guys are doing dirty tricks, and he knows that they did Ellsberg psychiatrists, they did all kinds of different things. But had he gone out into the Rose Garden and called a press conference and said, in essence, the boys got off the hook last night or got off the leash, and ... I'm responsible, although I didn't know about it till this morning. He would have never resigned. He would have had a full pull, but he didn't do it. Nixon's own personality can't do that. And he had to begin this elaborate cover-up. And it just got closer and closer, and more crimes get committed. And eventually, as I mentioned too many times, it takes guys like you, Scott, and Barry Goldwater, and the power of the Republican Party, and literally got into limos. And
well, that's what's going to have to happen. But if you're a Democrat, there probably can be no greater sin than losing to Trump. So why would you want to? He spent 50 years in politics. Why would you want to end it like that?
It goes back to the Nixon model. Although Nixon is not demented by any stretch of the imagination, he's certainly drinking too much, but he isn't. But there's something, and I don't pretend to know what it is, but there's something, and it may be inside a doctor. Dr. Jill is totally different than Pat Ryan, than Thelma Ryan or Pat Nixon. Pat Nixon wanted out. I mean, she was always, You go back to the Checkers speech, and you go back to all these things when Nixon gets beat by Kennedy. She's almost shame-based about being involved in this. And Richard Nixon can't wait to get back into the next fight. And, there's...
Well, Biden doesn't face the obvious criminality that Nixon faced.
No, I mean...
even though the Republicans like to say that.
No, I mean, you're right. I mean, there's no indictments or anything like that. Richard Nixon was facing, and as he leaves, and I was always under the impression, till I read the latest Nixon book, that he had made the deal, that Gerald Ford, they had brokered it, and they did not. He left unprotected. They were hoping that his deal had been made, but his deal had not been made. And when he gets to San Clemente and he's on the beach and he wants to see Gerald Ford. He wants to, and Ford doesn't want to see him. Doesn't want him around. And they broker that pardon, which probably cost Gerald Ford that pending election. So I don't know, but what? And watching, and I'm an old man, but watching this old man stumble around and know that he is in charge of what can happen to my grandson. He's got to go. He's got to go tonight.
And you're not only looking at now, you're looking at 4 years. He'll be 86 years old.
No, I know.
And it's not going to get better.
And if you vote for him, if you vote for Joe Biden, you're really voting for Kamala Harris. He's not going to be there. There's no way. I mean, if you think that this old man is going to be president 2 years from now, or a year from now, or 3 years from now, when place or show, you and I both, any reasonable person knows that the guy's not going to be there.
I don't think under any circumstances Trump has a cakewalk. There's enormous opposition.
But it depends on who they find and who they
exactly.
If they get some of these Democrats that are just useless, worthless, Donald Trump's going to bulldoze them. But your point's well taken. You put somebody up there that's got some stroke, we'll see. Then the fight's really on. Steve, very good, man. Thank you so much.
Okay.
What do we do next? You want a break? You want to? Yeah, he says break. The G-Man's got the con. We have a line open, 303-696-1971. People don't be quite different. He's old. The kinds of things that guys. I'm only here for the beer. 710 KNUS. We are Denver's talk station.
At this hour in the UK, I'm John Beaver, and here are the top stories we're following. The US has started withdrawing troops from the West African country of Niger. There are now fears of potential insecurity, as well as growing Russian influence in the region. Nabil Ahmed Rufai has more.
More than 1,000 US soldiers are expected to be withdrawn from Niger by the end of September. The US set up its military base in the country 6 years ago to fight against insurgencies linked to militant groups like Al-Qaeda. It was to complement the efforts of French troops who had also set up a base in Niger. But after a military coup last year that toppled the democratically elected president, the junta leader is severing ties with Western powers. French troops were expelled last year and an agreement was made to close the US base. Analysts are concerned insecurity in the volatile Sahel region could escalate after the withdrawal of the US troops. There are also indications Russian equipment and training are now being provided to the ruling junta.
Hurricane Beryl continues to cause damage and disruption in Texas, but wind speeds are now significantly lower than when they hit peak gusts of almost 100 miles per hour. At least 3 people have died, and heavy rain and storm surges have caused widespread flooding. And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm John Beaver in the UK on Salem News Channel.
Fellas are off until next Monday. I'm Peter Boyles, on the air everywhere on Tuesday. I will be back here tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. and we'll be here until 10 o'clock. To the wall again. Were the Clintons inspired by Watergate? Remember Hillary, she was Hillary Rodham. She got kicked off. She was an investigator and they caught her hurking something. I forget what it was. And they bounced her. They told her goodbye. All right, we go to Tim on line 1. Tim, you're on the radio show. Thank you and good morning.
Pete, good morning, buddy. How you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm
Good
well.
to hear you on the air, my
Thank
friend.
you, sir. Thank you.
You know what? I tell you. So what it is within itself, simplicity, is that Biden is ill. He's sick. He's an old man. He's sick. His mental capacity is not there anymore. So I would ask your listeners, if Biden was piloting a plane, would they board it? What is it within itself? Now, if Biden showed up as an Uber driver, would you get in that car?
That's right.
Right. So therefore, he is the president. He does deserve a certain amount of respect. However, does he have the mental and the physical capacity to run the most powerful war machine in the world?
No.
He has control of the football.
He doesn't.
So when people start to do their votes and look at this, is he capable? Now, age catches up with us all, and you know that, Pete. It catches up with us. And there's certain deficiencies that come along with that. So to elect a man who's very ill, I'm not going to speak.
Tim, you don't think he's really going to be on this ballot in come November, do you?
You know what? No. What I really think is he will step aside.
Yeah.
And Kamala will be president.
See,
for 3 months. And she will choose Jared Polis as a vice president.
Well, she's going to. Pause. Stop.
Yes, sir.
If he steps down between now and whenever their convention or Friday, I don't think that the power brokers of the party are going to say, although they almost have to, because if they won't, then they're going to be accused of racism, sexism.
Absolutely.
So do they have to choose her? And if
you know what? So if he steps down, she's next in line. She's next in line.
Yeah.
He cannot go through it. He cannot go through this election.
But they can make
Democrats are tactical. They're smart.
I understand it, but they can Tim, they can make deals. In other words, I would be willing to bet that these meetings that are taking place, she will be the next person, or maybe is in those meetings as we speak. And because you got to figure out what you do with her or for her or to her. And then you got to talk Joe. I mean, nobody can quit until Joe says he quits. And did you see the cut?
Joe's not making any decisions. It's Joe.
But did you see that cut where she said how she's ready?
Yes, absolutely. I did see that.
She's ready.
Which is devastating. So, but the Democrats, remember, they've been planning for years and years and years. If he steps down before the election, which I think was going to occur, Kamala will step up, and then the Democrats can say, "We got the first black lady as president."
No, that all those things can happen, but it's in fact, I mean, this is why they run races and fight fights and play the game.
Yes.
All the stuff that's being said now is all, play let's pretend. But the question I have for you is, and what's the overs and unders on Joe while he's still, how much longer is he behind the desk?
Yeah, so one of the things is it will behoove the Democrats, and they're smart and they're planning, is that to remove him before the election.
Got to go now. He's got to go this week, because you got to campaign. Absolutely. You got to campaign whomever it is.
Right. So thinking that when it all comes down to it, we know he's not cognitive. We know he's not able. No. This man has the football.
Yeah.
He has the football. And guess what? To continue him with the Democrats, they're smart. They'll get rid of him. They're not going to let him go through the election. They're not going to let him go through that. They will replace him beforehand. They'll replace him beforehand. However, then we got Kamala. Now we're worse off.
Yeah. Well,
we're worse off with Kamala.
But again, that's pretense in saying that it's going to be her, because my best guess is they will find a place to park her, to get her out of the blast. Now, I could be dead wrong, but I think it's like the head of an Ivy League school or something, and she'll do what she's going to do, and then they have a wide open. And if they pick Newsom, or if they pick any of these other people, They got a loser. I appreciate your call. Let's go here. Ron, you're on a radio show. Welcome to the show, and thank you. It's a Tuesday.
Right on, Pete. Once again, like that other guy said, good to hear you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hey, when you were saying earlier, as far as the proof of the election and it being rigged,
I don't want to do this.
Pete,
go ahead.
No. This is just short and sweet. It's just not going to carry on. It's just that, brother, how many times have we seen things in law happen that can't be proved that we know otherwise?
Well, now you're playing the hypothetic, and so it really is true because you believe it.
Okay, let's play factual.
I said I don't want to.
Simpson.
I said
that's factual.
OJ.
That's
the jury walked OJ.
They had no proof. We know he did.
Please don't do this to me because it's going to make my head explode. The jury walked OJ Simpson. The grand jury wanted to indict John and Patsy Ramsey. That didn't happen either. But that doesn't make the other two right.
Okay, fine, whatever.
It's not a whatever. It's not a whatever.
Well, the proof that was given was not accepted. The proof that was given was proof. It just wasn't accepted in the court.
It was jury nullification in the OJ case. OJ did it. OJ murdered those people. He was found guilty in the next court. In fact, he was but
not criminal.
I understand that, but he was still found guilty. The Ramseys got away with it. But the grand jury wanted to indict John and Patsy. Look, there's plenty of flukes, but these aren't what we're talking about. This is case after case after case after case. Do me a favor, do you a favor. Change horses on me. Talk about something else. It's going to make me nuts. Go ahead.
Okay. Now, as far as what's going on right now, there has been talk. I mean, everybody knows that Biden is going to have to step down. It's just what time is he going to step down?
Sooner better.
Because there has been, exactly. Because when J.P. Morgan Chase said, we're not backing him, he needs to step down. When Steve Jobs says he needs to step down, we're not backing him. Exactly. And so when you've got these big powerhouses saying, you got to go, and when we see Newsom over there, he's the only one that's there.
Can't.
That's what makes me lean towards they're going to be picking Newsom, which would be a big mistake for them, but good for Republicans.
And everything you just say is true. I mean, my thoughts, and not that it matters, but I would go and find my Donald Trump. I'd go outside. The reason why Trump had and continues to have appeal is he's not them. He funded a lot of politicians. He funded a lot of Democrats, funded a lot of Republicans. He's what wealthy men and women do. They find the guy that can help them the most, and they bankroll him. Having said that, they're going to have. If I were them, I'd go find a man or a woman, the total outsider, the outlier, the Donald Trump. I don't believe.
Do you know who the Trump would have been? And the Democrats really dropped the ball. It was, is her name Tulsi Gabbard? Is that her name?
Oh, yeah, sure. Yes.
When she was going to be running, and I'm listening to her.
She was good.
And I was going to be voting for Trump. And then I listened to her. It's like, oh, man, she could give him a run for the money.
Absolutely.
But
they
messed up. They just turned her off. The Democrats turned her off.
But that part of it now is over. Now it's going to be. Now you're going to go to the conventions, and I said this on Saturday because we were talking about it. I think it's fascinating that 4 weeks ago, Trump's on trial in New York. I think it might have been 5 weeks ago. The entire thing is about Trump. Look how quickly it became Biden. I mean, literally, in terms of politics and the news media, that was overnight. Now Donald Trump is on an even keel. The Republican Party, not in Colorado, but in the country, is on a very even keel, an uplifting keel. The Democrats are circling the drain. How quickly that happened. Now, you got to believe that these people are light years smarter than me, and know as soon as we can get our guy in place, man or woman, to replace Joe, the cameras can go back across the hall or the cameras, and this guy's going to, whoever it is going to have some glow, and they're going to have some love, and all of those things are going to be realistic. There are going to be reporters that are going to talk about when he or she was a boy or a girl going to school, all the predictable stuff that you and I are going to see. So give me the last comment.
You know what?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, when you were talking about as far as, that's over as far as Tulsa, I think you hit the nail on the head. For right now, it is over.
It's over. No, it's
they
done.
Lost it.
It's done.
They're not going to be able to find another Trump on their side for a while. I'm sure there's going to be somebody.
You're the man.
But it's going to take a while.
I'm going to jump. Thank you, sir. We go to Mike on line 1. You're on a radio show Tuesday. Good morning.
Good morning, Pete.
Hey, brother.
I was just curious. My prediction is if Biden steps aside, is Michelle runs as president and Barack runs as VP.
If she wanted it, she could have it right now. She doesn't want it. There's no evidence of that. That's, another goes around talk radio. But if she wanted it, she'd step in right now. They need a run. You need look, this is July the 9th. The election's in November. You got to be on your horse right now. And she doesn't want it. I mean, there's no reason to believe that she wants it.
Okay. Well, I was just curious. Like I said, anything is possible. I feel like anybody's better than Biden and Kamala. So,
but Mike, that's what they're doing right now. I've never been into smoke-filled rooms, but that's what they're doing right now. Oh, and it goes back to Nixon when, lesser and minor Republican elected officials and power brokers said he has to go. Other than that, he wasn't gone. He was not going anywhere, but it takes that moment where the weight comes down and says, that's enough. Now, that weight has to come down on Jill. I don't think with Joe, it's in one ear and not the other. I don't know what he's thinking, and I don't think he knows what he's thinking. But if the Obamas wanted it, or if Michelle Obama wanted it, it was hers for the asking, months ago. She didn't want it. Why should she? I'm not defending her, but she's been through it for 8 years. They got a case life. They got these big homes. They hang out with wealthy people. They go on vacations. Sounds a hell of a lot better than having people scream at you. It's like, I appreciate your call. Thank you. We're going to take a turnaround. You say the word. Kelly Michaels got the con. I'm back here tomorrow morning at 6. We'll be here until 10. It is 9:41, 19 before the hour. One of the warm days headed our way. You stay right here. Lines, there's 303-696-1971. 2 lines open. See that Dr. Jill Cliff? We're all in. Jill, you're the man's wife. 710 KNUS, Denver's talk station. Thank you for being here. 90 the high, 92 tomorrow. What a week this is going to be. The Biden team right now, they have their backs to the wall, and all these signs of congressional deflectors and people that are switching sides and urging him to drop his campaign, and the donors' threats to stop writing checks. And we have all these, the guy's 81 years old, and I can relate. It's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. It has to end. The quicker you can end it, you got to stop the bleeding. That's the number one rule. And his best opportunity to prove these guys wrong, they're talking about this NATO press conference on Thursday. Don't let him go do that. I mean, that's abuse. And they're going to let him go and do that. And I'm thinking to myself, you can't do that. And so there's also this, I don't know what we do with it, but publicly questioning Democrats publicly, it isn't Republicans or talk show hosts. It's Dems, lawmakers, questioning Joe's ability to lead the party into an election, which they think democracy itself is at stake. And these guys have been silent, and now they're speaking. So, what a week this is going to be, and I'll be glad to be here. All right, we go to Frank. Frank, did you call the radio show this morning already?
Yeah, and thanks for letting me call back. Here's the thing. I just wanted let's start with a definition of unindicted co-conspirator.
Oh my heavens, Frank, you got to get brother, you got to get a life. I'm serious. You called a radio show twice in one morning?
Yeah, well, that's because you're awesome, man.
No, it isn't.
Anyway,
all right.
Your definition of unindicted co-conspirator is someone who's on the indictment,
yes,
but is not indicted,
yes,
for one of the following reasons: they're dead, they're ill,
yes,
they've been pardoned, as in Nixon, they are sick, as in Biden,
yes,
or they have rolled over and gotten immunity.
Okay.
Trump was none of those. Trump is simply a citizen. He's not an unindicted co-conspirator.
That makes you feel better. Then fine.
It does.
Okay.
I'm much happier now.
So what do you think? Okay. All right. He is, by the way, Donald Trump's criminal cases are significant, and he was found guilty of 34 counts of falsifying business records. It goes on and on and on. Trump's third indictment is this investigation into this, what happened in Georgia, what happened in Atlanta. And again, the January 2nd, I think it was, the phone call where Trump wants the Georgia Secretary of State to, what's his name? Raffensperger, I think was his name, Raffensperger.
Yeah.
But where Trump, in this attempt to induce him to overturn the election and find the exact number of votes, that's what got him indicted in Georgia.
No.
Now, look, I got the list in front of me. I got the list of the indicted conspirators. Now, don't do this to me.
That's indicted, not unindicted. So here's the point.
Richard, so he's so Trump. So Trump. So wait a minute. Listen. So that means Trump's been indicted. Yeah. Was Trump indicted? Listen, right in front of me, right here. Don't say a word, and I'll just read this to you. This is defendants. This is the Georgia election racketeering prosecution, the RICO, who's number one, Donald Trump, President of the United States. Number two, Rudolph Giuliani, his lawyer. Number three, Ray Smith. Number four, Kathy Latham, fake electoral, Coffee County. The next one is Robert is a Cheesley, lawyer. John Eastman, my friend, is on the list. Then David Schaefer, Kenneth Cheeseburger, who rolled over. Mike Roman, campaign staffer. Sean Still, fake elector, state senator. Jenna Ellis, your personal friend, lawyer. Mark Meadows, White House chief of staff. Jeffrey Clark, the U.S. DOJ official. That's 13 people. They've been indicted. I'm reading it to you. All right, then I'm reading wrong. I'm reading wrong. I'm reading wrong.
As being on the indictment. So
that says right here. It says right here of these defendants, Hall, Powell, Chesborough, and Ellis have pled guilty in return from charges for charges being dropped. They're not under the indictment. I don't want to do this.
Indicted because they rolled over.
Okay. All right. How do I get out of this, Kelly? How do I do this? The co-conspirators are part of the federal indictment of Trump. No, come on, just hang up. Let's just end that. I don't want to do that. But I mean, what I mentioned was Jenna Ellis is a rat. she ratted them all out. But the first person to rat them out was the Kraken. And when the Kraken ratted, she rolled and she went and made a deal with the same RICO grand jury. I have the list in front of me. What is this? I'm making this up. I'm reading it to you. Ugh. So, won't bring that up again the rest of this week. And truly, I mean, come on. To the text machine, how much time we got? It says you are mellowing with age. God, I hope so. My kids say that. My kids say, Dad, you've really calmed down. Do you want to read a bunch of these as we round third and head for home? You are good morning. That was the next presidency, and they go on from that. Look, whatever is going to happen, and we'll be back here tomorrow morning, and we'll do it again at 6 o'clock in the morning. Whatever is going to happen is going to have to happen quickly. Now, they're talking about Jill Biden is now talking about how Joe has vigor. You can see Joe's vigor. If your old lady has to walk out there and tell people that you got vigor, it's like I wrote a column when my dad passed away. And he was in a really tight hospital, but the old ladies would go in and out of the rooms to see different people's husbands. And they would always come out and say, he has good color. Next 2 hours later, the guy's dead. Your dad has good color. Go by. All right, we got 10 seconds. Thank you. Kelly Michaels and myself here on 710 KNUS.